let you off the hook.
You could give me shit. I don't care.
We'll see.
All right, we're live. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I mean, if you do, Brian is saying that he's gonna call me out for something, but if you do, it's just gonna boomerang right back into your face because I definitely did nothing wrong and did everything right, in my opinion.
So I think I don't think you did everything right.
You're saying that I'm obligated to answer every message you send me in a timely fashion. I thought
it was unreasonably sneaky because you didn't just not answer it in a timely fashion. You purposely were mute, like you avoided.
You messaged me. Okay, for the chat.
Like to have
hi everyone. So Brian messaged me.
Let's save it for the show.
Okay,
let's save it.
Well, whatever. This is the live. This is the non-patron's last chance to get this good stuff.
And I also feel like your problem with it is that I think that like you took the idea. That's not my problem with it. I don't think. I don't think.
Let me just ask you. Let me just do it here. Then we can talk about it on the show also if we want, and we can reference how we should just.
I think we should talk about it on the show.
Well, now we're teasing people. Not nice.
Well, so the wait. I don't want to retread the same.
For everyone here, I wanted to tell. Brian said no.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to strategically say nothing if you try to approach the conversation now.
You're the one who brought it up in the first place. Okay.
Well, yeah.
All right. Let's start
the show.
Sure. Ready to start?
I'm for the downloaders. By the way, thanks. We're up to over. Sorry, we need to start. But if you're one of the 1,010 people who've subscribed to our YouTube channel watching this, please also just do us the favor of like downloading it on a podcast app too, because we don't get any credit with our network overlords for you listening. But we appreciate you being here a lot. Thanks. Okay.
All right. Let's do this.
Okay. Hang on.
Okay. Right. Hang on.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Okay, I kind of like had a weird throat thing there. One sec. Also, by the way, on Zoom it doesn't come off well, but on my Audacity it comes off well. So people don't need to tell me in the chat that it cut out because like the Zoom can't handle it. It's just FYI. All right. Yeah. Cody, get. Okay. Why'd she come in if she didn't? One sec. Why'd you come in?
Ruff. That's Cody's answer. Cody's answer is I came in because I love you, Dad. And you don't spend enough time with me. I miss you. We never play catch anymore.
All the time. She is not even a good. All right. All right. Joel's giving me the script here, so I'm ready to go now. Yeah. Let's welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the whole entire world, hosted by two guys who have a crush on every team. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me to go over all of our friends all around the NHL as we do our classic 32 teams and 32 takes episode, which we like to do, I don't know, once a month or so. It's Brian Crum, the fantasy hockey robot. Why did I say his name before the nickname? I don't know, because I'm excited. Brian, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Elon. I have to say, though, one notable thing that was missing from your usual introduction of me is usually say my best friend and yours. And I
don't know if I usually say that.
I think you often do. I think it's interesting that you left it out tonight because we had a bit of a tiff over the weekend. And also, like, if it proved anyone was the fantasy hockey robot, I think you are.
Okay, well, go ahead. Like, I promise I didn't purposely leave that. I didn't want to pull like a Ben Burnett with the fine Thursday evening. I don't want to be like a bit guy. I guess I do have a bit. I yell yes every time, so I'm a total hypocrite here. But that one bit, or I guess I say also cue the outro music at the end of every episode. Okay, I have a few bits. Why am I doing that? I don't even know. It's not even like a thing I've purposely. Anyway,
are you Brian, avoiding the conversation? Like, it's an awkward conversation.
It's not an awkward conversation.
It is. Okay, so here's what happened. I mean, we're clearly talking to Elon, like we're talking ships. Elon values the championships more than the friendships, unfortunately, is what I think I've learned over the weekend. Some naval talk to get the show started. Yeah, well, so when Comrie went down, and I earlier in the season, I said, I think Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has a pretty good chance of being a quality fantasy own this season. Like there is definitely a scenario where Craig Anderson is the likely one to get injured, although it was Comrie. UPL gets called up, gets in the show, plays well enough to take the job from whoever the healthy guy is who hasn't quite gotten a hold on it. And so like I send Elon a friendly message, just saying, oh, like, this could be interesting for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. That's like someone to have on your radar in case you're thinking about it.
I don't think that's what you messaged me. I like how you're coming in with something that we didn't even need to talk about right away, like telling the story incorrectly when you have the messages right in front of you. You can easily just tell the truth.
So I said, what did I say? What was
you
the
said?
First...
Should I drop like Grubauer and Martin Jones?
So we both have the Seattle, like a Seattle goaltending situation. So I put it out to you, hey, should we drop our Seattle goalies now that Grubauer's back for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen? But, you also don't want to end up with a tandem. And you were uncharacteristically silent for about, 15 hours. And then I see that you replied at like 12:30 the next day. I asked you the night before. And I went to check. We're in a league together. And I went to check. And sure enough, just before you wrote me back, you had added Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Right before you messaged me back, yeah, I think I might do the same actually. And I had a problem with that. Like look, you chose not to respond to my message until you had added him. Like, look, I'm an open book. I just want to share fantasy hockey thoughts with my friend, but you just want to take championships.
Look, like there's only one Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen available in our league, and I already had my eye on him. So I didn't want to be responding to you being all like, yeah, I really like it. By the way, he ended up getting blown up by the Leafs, as we'll discuss. So it's not as it. But anyways, but I'm not going to be like, yeah, I think he's amazing. He's for sure like my number one goalie, that target. Like, I had a whole plan that I was going to add him.
You could have just said like, yeah, maybe. Like,
okay,
then I'm not being, or like, I've got an eye on him. I wouldn't have extrapolated from that, oh man, I gotta race Elon. I'd just be thinking like, you're going to beat me to the ad anyway. That.
Well, I don't know. You could have taken him right then. Like I had anyways, Brian, like, look, I'd rather say nothing than give a half-hearted answer. That's not my true feelings. So
I felt betrayed.
Well, okay, so I should have just not responded at all and just said like, "Oh, sorry, I missed this one." And then,
well, no,
but I'm not a phony person. I'm being real with you, and it bit me. You messaged me being like, "Did you purposely wait to respond?" And I was like, "Yeah," and then you were like, "Well, I'm mad now." I was like, "Well, I guess I should have lied
because you didn't want to get sniped." But like, I opened myself up to the like. Of course, I know you're thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. I thought I could bounce a thought off you. This is why in the cupful. We've never, like I always said, like we couldn't play in the same division because it would impact the show. But I love what you did after I called you out for not writing me back, for ghosting me in the conversation until you had added UPL. You wrote, "I never hold back on the pod." Yeah. So how often, like, I don't want to play in a league with you if you're gonna hold back from me in our DMs. That's not fun.
All right, so I don't know. Don't play anything with me. I don't know what to tell you.
Our friendship is in jeopardy.
I don't think it is, but I guess that's up to you to decide. I just feel like if there's a free agent that I'm after in our league, but I can't add him right away for one particular reason or another, and then you're asking me about him, I'm probably going to wait until I get him before I start telling you my thoughts on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's your style. Me, I'm in it for the friends. I'm in it for, I'm in it for a good time with my buddy. You're in it to win it. And I've learned a lesson. Joel in the chat has mentioned fantasy hockey is war. Trust nobody. Your fault, Brian.
Yeah, but he wrote war in capital letters, which means that I assume he's wins above replacement, which was like the favorite stat of an old patron that we had, where he used to get so. Remember that there was a take of like Jack Eichel's like the fifth worst saver.
We don't need to retread that. Like there was a whole like war was evolving. Whatever.
I just remember whenever I see war, that's what I think of. But anyways, all right, guys, let's get on track here, people. We have a lot to discuss today.
I want you to know I'm here. I'm here tonight. I don't hold back on the pod. I don't hold back anywhere.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to give our best to the listeners of the podcast. That's the number one priority here. And we've got, like I said, a big show because we're going to give one take from every team and probably even more than one take. We're going to try to do it in a couple hours and we're already 10 minutes in for some reason. So before we get into all of that, let's of course mention a couple quick things. Keeping Karlsson, very proudly presented by DobberHockey.com. I love DoubleHockey.com. Like, it's such a great site. The articles are great. I think the writers are all very smart. Also, Frozen Tools is unbelievable. Just this morning, I tweeted at Frozen Tools asking for a small feature request for the last game lines to show. They already showed the date of the last game, and I wanted to know the opponent because sometimes I'm prepping the show and I want to be like, oh, Cam Fowler had 2 assists in his last game. Then I could really see quickly like who was against, so I could say on the show versus whoever. And they like put it in like 10 minutes later or something. It's such a great site. Frozen Tools is like the best site in the world. So if you want to prepare for hockey podcast or be successful in fantasy and look up anything you want to see. So check it all out, DobberHockey.com. Second announcement, for those of you joining us live, the majority of you are patrons of Keeping Karlsson. We thank you so much for being a patron and supporting the show. If you're interested in doing so, if you're a listener and you want to get some of the cool perks that we give and also to show us your support, you can go to keepingkarlsson.com/patron to sign up. We're adding a new perk to being a patron, which is this live stream that we do for the people who like to watch us live on Sunday nights. That's going to become a perk just for patrons. Okay. A little thing to say thank you to the patrons. Be like, this is going to be just for you. It's just going to be us friends here. We've already been asking the patrons for some like suggestions. Oh yeah. Brian and I are friends. But you and me and the patrons.
Would you rather chat with me about fantasy hockey?
Brian,
or would you rather win this, or would you rather win that league?
I'm in the middle of something. Could we just discuss this later?
I need an answer.
I'd rather be friends with you than win that league, but I'd rather win the league than answer your random advice questions on a Friday night.
It was a chat.
Saturday.
I'm chatting.
Okay. Well, as I was saying, we've already in the patron Discord server.
You didn't answer the question.
I did answer the question. You just didn't like my answer. So the patrons have been giving us suggestions of which players they want us to talk about. And we've, that's been a lot of fun. And we've been trying to, get the patrons involved with the show. So we thought also live stream for the patrons. Okay. We're all hanging out. But obviously the show will be available for everyone to listen to for free forever. So hope you're all enjoying it. And with that, Brian, unless you have any more, other things to discuss.
Just brings me back to Laser Quest. Is where these moments always bring me back to.
This is not a patron cast. We don't.
I'm just saying, like, if anyone knows Laser Quest or Laser Tag, Elon was that guy who went and camped in one place and relentlessly went after everyone. Like, he didn't. I mean,
I was playing to win.
I very well with your fantasy hockey strategy. Yeah.
When I play games, I try to win those games. I'm not hurting anybody here.
I was hurt.
Well, you chose to be hurt. Okay. Anyway, Can we start the show now?
Yeah.
Should we just forget it?
Therapy's booked for tomorrow.
Okay, good. All right. I'm not going. So we are going to go through every team. I have plans. So, no, I don't. Okay. So the plan is that the way we're going to order the teams that we're going to discuss is we on our Patreon. Another thing about the Discord, I didn't mean to make it all about the Discord, of course, but we do have a lot of fun there, is when people join, they have the option to choose their team that they follow, like kind of self-identify. So then people can like tag, oh, Maple Leafs, what do you think about this person? And all the people who are like Leafs fans get tagged. It's a lot of fun. And so we've got Norm helped me to order all of the teams by who's the most popular to the least popular, according to the patrons. And guess what? The Leafs are the most popular. So we have 57 Leaf fans on the Discord, which means we're going to start in Toronto, where, of course, we need to discuss Matt Murray is back. Welcome back, Matt Murray. He played 2 strong games versus Buffalo and New Jersey. I don't know what makes me more excited for him, the fact that he had 2 strong games or the fact that he completed 2 games at all, right? No injuries, healthy from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. And he actually played well against, Buffalo is a pretty good team, and then New Jersey, one of the best teams in the league. So I don't even know what to say here. Like, I feel like we've been getting some questions on Twitter, like, should I add this person or Murray, or should blah, blah. Like, definitely add Matt Murray, right? Like, my concern with Matt Murray is that he'll likely get injured. I hope not. I'm wishing him the best, but especially while Samsonov is out. And the latest on Samsonov, Sheldon Keefe said, he was asked, what do you think about Samsonov or what's going to happen with him? He said, he's not at the point now where he is in any sort of push to come back. He has some more healing to do, not quite at the point of being able to push it every day. So he's still a little bit away. Matt Murray is the clear starting goalie on a really strong team. He's playing well, which is almost like a bonus, because even if he didn't play so well, he'd probably still get decent stats because he's on such a strong team. So yeah, I would say don't, bank your season on Matt Murray. Don't trade away like one of your star skaters to upgrade one of your goalies to Matt Murray. But if he's in free agency, 100% slam dunk, you want him, right, Brian?
Yeah, you want him 100%. You want the starter on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Although we've said in the past, the reason to avoid Shalgren or to not race for Petrozelli, which never ended up needing to be a thing you would have had to do, is that they don't give up a lot of shots. So, you make a couple mistakes in a night and hey, you're kind of in trouble as a goalie. You don't have great numbers. But if you're looking for wins, you definitely go for Matt Murray. And honestly, if you're looking for rates, go for Matt Murray too. Like you said, Elon, we have that quote that with the way Matt Murray's playing, they don't need to rush back Samsonov. However, if you remember back from like the second episode we did of this season, there is a Matt Murray cycle and we are officially back in it. He's going to come back with a surprising run. Then he's going to fall apart for a little bit. Then he might have one or two, like a glimmer of hope game type games. And then he's going to get injured again. So in the meantime, go ahead and enjoy it while it lasts. And maybe this is the time Matt Murray breaks the cycle, but you don't have to worry about that right now. Right now, all you know is if the Toronto Maple Leafs starting goalie is playing well and available to you, then just go ahead and get him.
Yeah. So and good luck to the Leafs, right? Like I hope that because the team has been getting a lot of crap for taking this big swing on Murray and Samsonov as the tandem, and then they both got injured. And I was like, well, that's what you get for. So I wish them some luck to just like have Matt Murray be healthy and to not just like the team go up in flames because they took this risk. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Next up, we're going to the Vancouver Canucks. We have 48 fans on our Discord, and we had a question from Yakolev, which I guess wasn't even a question. It was more just like a request. Can we get some EP40 praise, some numbers, etc.? He's been great in the cupful too. Yeah, Elias Pettersson has been great in every league. He's been fantastic. He's got 13 points in his last 9 games, up to 22 points in 18 games on the season. Brian, that's an 100-point pace. The lines, of course, have been shaking around in Vancouver quite a bit, but now we're back to those lines that we saw in the preseason. Pettersson, Mikheyev, and Kuzmenko. Nice to see, by the way, Kuzmenko waking up a little bit, after his healthy scratch. And obviously, I think now I'm interested in him again now that he's back playing with Elias Pettersson. And that's because, yes, I don't know, Yakolev, what else you want me to say? Maybe Brian will dig into it more. I think Pettersson is awesome. Like I said, he's on a 100-point pace. So I guess my question to you, Brian, is he going to hit 100? Do you think by the end of the year, assuming he plays all 82 games, do you think we're looking at a 100-point Elias Pettersson season?
This takes me back to before the 2020-2021 season where Elias Pettersson had a rookie season 76-point pace, sophomore season 80-point pace. And we were talking about, could he be an 100-point player? Is he worth drafting as early as the second round, maybe even creeping into the end of the first? And the answer there at that point was definitively yes, he would be. Of course, that was followed by an injury-plagued 66-point season that year that we were looking for 100. And then the following season, which was last year, all of Vancouver really, really struggled for a lot of the year. And we never put any of the blame on Pettersson. We just said, hey, this needs to be worked out. It'll be okay. Don't need to worry about it. And sure enough, towards the end, he did pick up his game, and that he ended the season on a 70-point pace was kind of an accomplishment in and of itself. And now, yeah, Pettersson he's on that 100-point pace that we hoped he'd be. And one thing that I'm liking about what I'm seeing from him is I'm liking that he is shooting more. That's nice. And those shots are coming at even strength too. So good for him for getting more involved as a shooter at 5-on-5. Those shots seem to be coming from better locations, like not by a ton, but enough to move the needle, at least just a little bit. And also, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but Pettersson has a penalty kill rule this year. He's one shorthanded point already. If he can just do that once every 20 games, then, you had another 4 games onto his, yet another 4 points onto his totals. And that's worth it. That's nice. Nice little bonus. So yeah, I love that he's pacing for 3 shots a game for the first time in his career. He's been very steady 2.5 shot per game guy. And he seems to be easily, I think one of the reasons for that is he is the guy on his line, right? Like if we look at who he's played with most, like you've got Ilya Mikheyev, Andrei Kuzmenko. These are not the guys that you expect to be shooting. It's not like there's a Brock Besser or a JT Miller waiting to take the puck and fire it on net. No, this is Pettersson's job, is to go get those goals. And he's done an amazing job of it this year already with, what's he up to? But already 9 goals in 18 games. So pacing for a 40-goal season might be a titch high, but that's because he's succeeding at 5-on-5, but he's yet to score a power play goal. So those two things might wash each other out. So if this was just supposed to be an Elias Pettersson celebration, and there it is. There's the Elias Pettersson celebration. I have no concerns about what he's doing. If you find anyone who does, go ahead and buy high, because I think we're looking at a potential 100-point season from him. He can keep this up, and if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to fall off a whole bunch from where he's at now.
Right. Yeah. Like worst case 90, probably. Like I really, and especially because he was able to do so well while Vancouver was such a tire fire. Like that's a good sign, right? Because maybe things will even turn around a bit. Hey, Thatcher Demko finally had a good game. Like what was it? His first of the season, letting in fewer than 3 goals, only 1 goal against versus LA, stopping 37 out of 38 in a big win there. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen moving forward. And for those people with Demko in free agency, now would be the time to go and grab him. By the way, I'll just throw that out there. But okay, Brian, next up, the next most popular team is, of course, Les Habitants de Montréal. I was surprised they weren't number 2 because we do have a lot of French-speaking patrons. But yeah, the Habs have 42 fans. And we got to talk about an outjury here. Just like in Toronto, Mike Matheson played his first game of the season yesterday versus Philly, the big return for Jeff Petrie, who, by the way, I don't know if we've really talked about Jeff Petrie. Like he's doing very well in Pittsburgh. He scored a goal again today. I wonder if like the Habs should have just kept Petrie. But anyway, whatever. Okay, they don't care because they're thinking to the future anyways. But Matheson played his first game and he scored a goal himself, had 3 shots, 2 blocks, 1 hit, played a lot of minutes in the 5-4 win. The Habs are still running a 5-forward power play. So even though on Frozen Tools, it looks like he was like the top power play quarterback in terms of like, he's like, you see him as the defenseman with the most time. He was actually on the second power play, similar to what Jekai was getting before. Either way, clearly an interesting ad at this point, I would say, as the top defenseman on the team. He's probably out there in a lot of leagues. Brian, what is your thought on Mike Matheson? And do you think people should go get him if they need some defense?
I think you could try him out. Like, we don't know what to expect from him yet, right? Like, he just made his Montreal debut. And we know that he's not necessarily guaranteed to get on the power play. In fact, Marty St. Louis, was it the last game or the game before? He's like, yeah, Mike Hoffman was injured, which is why we didn't put him out a whole lot after we noticed he was hurt. But we kept him because we thought he could still be useful to us on what was that 5-forward power play. So if Marty St. Louis is willing to play a half-able Mike Hoffman on the power play above Mike Matheson, then maybe that's a sign that this isn't necessarily something we can expect to happen with any kind of consistency. But as somebody who's going to eat a lot of minutes, like to make your season debut and play 24 minutes coming back from an injury, not being eased in or anything, that could be an indication that Montreal expects to use this guy a lot, and anybody who's on the ice a lot for Montreal might be able to pick up. I mean, Matheson has never been a huge hits guy. He, at one point in his career, could be relied on for a couple blocks a game, although that's faded away to become like 1 block a game. And I do like that he took 3 shots, though. He has had a reputation to be able to put some shots on net. So we'll see how well he's used, and also if he gets to play with that top line in Montreal. That's pretty exciting stuff. So I think if you're looking for a 4th defenseman, or maybe even a 3rd, you could take a look at Mike Matheson. I wouldn't for sure think he's someone who's going to stick on your roster all season long, but I will hold him for a couple games just to see how Montreal's using him.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like at the end of the day, he's like the best defenseman on the team, and Montreal scores some goals, right? Specifically, Suzuki, Caulfield, and Kirby Dach have just continued their wild run. And Brian, I was pretty surprised. You shared some data on our Discord a couple of days ago, asking if people maybe should sell high on Suzuki because I even forget exactly what it was. It was some like advanced stat to indicate that you don't think they'll be able to keep this up. And like, I'm just curious, do you really feel that way? Do you really think that people who have Suzuki or Caulfield or Dach should be trying to sell them at this point? Because to me, I just see game in, game out, these guys are like producing like that's such a successful line so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, selling is a tough call because it depends on what you get back. Right now, Nick Suzuki is on a 105-point pace. I don't think he's going to keep that up, but I think the question is, how far is he going to regress? And if you're going to trade him, you're not getting another 100-point player back, right? Maybe you can get a point per game player, but maybe you've already got that in Nick Suzuki, who might have the upside to keep clicking. Same thing with Cole Caulfield, who's doing amazing. 11 goals through 18 games, 87-point pace. And Kirby Dach, ever since getting up to that line, has been just money. He's got 4 multi-point outings in his last 10 games. He's only gotten pointless twice in those last 10. He's not a scorer. Like, he's not shooting a lot. But he has picked up 3 goals in that time. And of course, is feasting on assists, playing on the top line and top power play with Suzuki and Doc. So the question around both these guys, and the piece of data I shared was shared by Jay Fresh on Twitter, who shared something that we had already noted on the podcast, which is that line, they're converting at too high a rate. Like their on-ice shooting percentages are high. Of course, it means their individual shooting percentages are high. And what Jay Fresh did is sort of charted the high watermarks from past seasons and compared that to where Suzuki specifically is at for shooting percentage and on-ice shooting percentage. And of course, shooting percentage was compared to Suzuki's own career numbers. But basically saying, yeah, this would be kind of a new high watermark if Suzuki and by extension Caulfield and Doc were all able to keep up what they were doing. Now, I am, again, not disbelieving that this is a really talented line, but I am just a little skeptical that they're going to keep clicking quite at this pace, especially for someone like Kirby Doc, who, if you have him, I have him, and I'm about to blow his trade value on this show. I have him in the Cupful, kkupfl.com, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. I have him on my tier 3 team in the Binghamton division, and I'm looking to sell for someone who I'm looking to sell for right now a 55 point-ish defenseman, like a power play 1 quarterback. That's what I'd really like to get back for Doc, because I think some aggression's coming. And when it does, I think Doc still could be 60, 65 point player through the rest of the season, which is nothing to sneeze at. But right now he's on a pace that is crazy hot. Like he's on a 73 point pace, and that's after doing nothing. Well, largely nothing for the first 7 or 8 games of the season. So the question about Suzuki, Doc, and Caulfield isn't like, do you sell high because they're going to crash? It's like, how much can you continue expecting from them? And I would say maybe I'd continue expecting 80% comfortably of what they're doing right now. Maybe 90%. I would not expect 100% of what they're doing right now, though. So that's the lesson here. If you can sell anybody, any of these 3 at 100% of their value, then you do you. Go for it. Let us know what you get. Otherwise, I'm not saying to go dump Suzuki, dump Caulfield, because they're going to flame out. I'm not saying that. I think if there is one guy that I am concerned about holding the most value the rest of the way, it's Doc, just because, again, he's not a big shooter. He's going to rely on getting assists. And when he doesn't get an assist, he probably might not even get a shot, or he'll get 1. So if you have Kirby Doc, maybe that's something to consider, as I am doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if you value him as like only a 65 point guy, or, not the whatever pace he's on now. I think that's probably what I do too. Like, it's just like, it's really good considering you got him out of free agency just a few weeks ago. And I think the Habs really got something there, but okay.
Yeah.
Next up, let's,
sorry. I was just gonna add, like, he looks legitimately good too. Like, I got him out of free agency, and I've mentioned before, I mentioned on the show, right? Pause the pod, go get Kirby Doc. 13 points in 10 games now since roughly the time we said that. And I don't think he's lucked into these points. I guess I've made that point already. He's looked really good, and the Montreal beat writers can't stop saying how Chicago gave up on this guy and how much skill they see in him and how he knows how to work with Suzuki and Caulfield. Okay, Elon, I'm done. I just want to make sure I'm talking positively enough about these 3 guys for what they're doing.
Yeah, they're amazing. Okay, next up, we're going to go to Detroit, who have 37 fans on our Discord. I guess I don't need to keep saying the number, but we're going in order here. Detroit, obviously very popular. Lewis is a big fan. I've got 3 different storylines about Detroit that I want to throw at you, and then you can comment what you want. So first of all, we've got an out jury. Tyler Bertuzzi is back in the NHL. So welcome back, Bertuzzi. He had no points versus Anaheim and San Jose. Finally did score a goal versus Columbus on Saturday. He's been on the second line, though, not the top line with Larkin. He's been on the second line with Kopp and Raymond, and also on the second power play away from Dylan Larkin. So that's no good. If that holds, I think that would be something to be concerned about. Of course, that's a big if. Like, I feel like these lines change around a lot over in Detroit. Currently, we've got Dominic Kubalik still on the top line and top power play with Larkin. I think an interesting question would be, if you had, one of them, the other was in free agency, like, who would you prefer at this point between Kubalik and Bertuzzi, for the rest of the season? Okay, so that's storyline number 1. Then Brandon wanted us to talk about Philip Hronek. He asked, what scoring demon is currently possessing this man? He lost the top power play recently back to Seider, but still Hronek keeps on going. He had 2 goals yesterday versus Columbus, which brings him to 6 points in his last 4 games. He's got 14 points in 18 games on the season. So just a huge resurgence, I guess, because we used to be really into Hronek, and then, it looked like Seider totally took his job, but now he's having a career year so far. And then speaking of Seider, 3 assists, including 2 on the power play on Saturday. He also had a goal on Thursday for San Jose. So it looks like this guy's finally getting back on track, after being kind of a huge bust for the start of the season. Tim A asked us on our Discord, since it being Yankee Thanksgiving, I'm thankful that Seider seems to have righted himself, and will I feel the same way by New Year's Day? So, okay, so Brian, back to you for Bertuzzi. Are we worried? Hronek, can he keep it up? And Seider, is he going to still make Tim A happy come a month from now when it's New Year's?
All right. Okay. Bertuzzi, are we worried? A little. We're a little worried about Tyler Bertuzzi because he's on the second line and the second power play. And by the way, Detroit is not splitting those power plays. There were a couple games early on where we wondered if maybe they were. They're not. So that is concerning to me. Of course, Tyler Bertuzzi has some upward mobility. He can take Oscar Sundqvist's spot on the top power play if coach lets him, if Derek Lalonde wants him up there, but that hasn't happened yet. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as Bertuzzi's off the top line and top power play, I'm a little concerned about him. That said, it's like he's barely been back. So let's see how this plays out. I think Bertuzzi is probably the better hockey player than Dominik Kubalik, like the better guy if they're getting the same deployment, but they're not. Kubalik's deployment is a lot better than Bertuzzi's at the moment. So I think that sort of washes out any difference between them and makes them roughly equal in terms of fantasy value. If I had Kubalik, I might consider flipping him for Bertuzzi. I might. Like, it would be a gutsy move, but it would be in the if you believe, and I'm not 100% sure I do, that Bertuzzi can do as well as Kubalik from his deployment. And then, of course, upside is through the roof if Bertuzzi does ascend onto the top power play or top line. But that second line in Detroit with Kopp and Raymond doesn't seem like such an awesome line. And Bertuzzi himself is also not somebody who I really trust to be able to drive a line and take care of business. So that is why, there might be a little reason for concern for Bertuzzi, but I wouldn't draw any large conclusions based on just the game back that he's played so far. As for Filip Hronek, he's pacing for 23 power play points, which won't continue from the second unit. He's also picked up a goal every 4 games. That also won't continue. That'd be 20 goals because he's scoring on 10% of his 40 shots so far. So that's unsustainable. But Hronek's shots, at least he's shooting more. That looks good. This is what we'd have liked to see from Filip Hronek from the last couple of years when he couldn't gain any kind of traction, when we were just begging him to. Remember when we wanted him to take the power play 1 job from Dennis Cholowski? It's been a ride. Yes. Yeah, it's been a ride with Filip Hronek, and then healthy scratches. Anyway, right now, I think what we can expect from him is a couple shots a game, 45 points, give or take 5. I know that's a pretty big range, but I feel like I still want to see more. He's rosterable in most leagues for sure. I just added him in a points only league that only has 3 D slots. I feel like D is thinner than it has been in previous years this season. There's fewer guys that are really hitting that floor peripherally or points wise either. So I think if Hronek's available, you got to go look for him and see. I think you probably have room for him on your roster if you're looking for at least a 4th D. And then Moritz Seider, it is good to see him back. Shooting rates are still down for Seider from last year at 5-on-5, so that's not great. It's good Seider is back on the top power play because I think he's going to need the 20 odd points he got there from last season to be a consistently fantasy relevant guy. He's definitely not blowing the doors off like a lot of folks were hoping when they drafted him amongst the top 10 or 15 defensemen in their league. Detroit also hasn't looked too great with him on the ice at 5-on-5, but of course they've had some injury trouble. So maybe now that Bertuzzi's back, we'll see what happens with Seider while he's on the ice. But I haven't seen anything to really get me too excited. And that drop in shots is also a bit of a bummer. So I'm glad he's back on the top power play, but I'm not jumping for joy about what I'm seeing from him if I was one of the people who drafted him, put a lot of draft capital into Moritz Seider.
Okay, yeah, all great insights for sure. And yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens between Hronek and Seider, because I really expect their fortunes to flip for the season moving forward. At least that's what we would have expected when the season started. So it'll be fun to see, come New Year's Day, how both Seider and Hronek are looking, and also if Bertuzzi's back on the top power plays. Yeah, I wish we could just go into the future and find out some of these things. Okay, let's go now to the Boston Bruins. But before we do that, Brian, we've got a lot of teams to get to, so let's just pace ourselves, take a little break. Listen to some advertisements from our friends that are whatever. They're not our friends, but I don't know. They're people who support the show. So we'll be back in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right. We are.
I was about to get offended. Well, I was about to get offended that you called them friends and not me.
You're my friend. Okay.
Oh, am I?
All right.
I'm your competitor first, friend second.
I don't have time. Okay. All right, we are back, Brian. We're going to the Boston Bruins and another outjury to discuss. Jeremy Swayman, just like Matt Murray. Brian, right away. Matt Murray or Jeremy Swayman? Obviously Matt Murray, right?
Matt
He'll
Murray.
probably get injured. But yeah,
Easy.
Swayman, so Swayman, though, had a nice game. Stopped 17 of 18 in a win over Chicago, though, it was versus Chicago. So maybe you don't want to read too much into that. Meanwhile, while he's been out, Allmark has been having a Vezina caliber season. Linus Allmark has a .937 save percentage, 12 wins in 14 games. Is there like any value in Jeremy Swayman? Like, we don't know, right? But I would guess that the way Allmark's been playing, he should just be the starter and Swayman should just be the backup. We know last year was more like a 50-50 thing and even seemed like maybe Swayman would be the starter. So I'm just curious to get your take on like if you see Swayman in free agency or if you had him in your IR, is he someone you need to get back on your team? Or is it like unless you're in a league where it's like impossible to get a goalie, can you just throw him into free agency because he's the backup to Allmark now?
I don't even know that. I don't fully agree with either statement, actually. I think if you want volume, Swayman is not going to be your guy. If you want rates, I think he might be your guy. And Allmark has been amazing. Like, this is easily Allmark's best performance in the NHL so far. Am I 100% sold it's going to last? No, I'm not. So I think the door will open to Swayman. And honestly, the door seemed fairly open to Swayman already, even when he was struggling early on. I could see this being still a roughly 50-50 split, even if Allmark is playing well and Swayman isn't. If the Bruins are winning with Swayman struggling, I think they seem to feel like they'd rather have both goalies going. But of course, right now, the leader, the clubhouse leader, to get 55 or 60% share of the starts is Linus Allmark. So keep that in mind if you are looking for Jeremy Swayman, who is not a must add, unless you're looking for like a start a week with a good chance of a win and a decent chance of some rate stats.
Yeah, the Bruins are so good. Charlie McAvoy, 4 assists on Saturday. He's up to 7 points in 5 games. Anyone who got him late in drafts because he was injured, laughing right now. This team, remember all these people having their hot takes that the Bruins, this is going to be the year they kind of fall off because they're older and all these people were injured. Like, now one of the top teams in the league. So there you go. Congrats to Bruins fans, of which there are many of them on our Discord since we're talking about this earlier in the show. Next up, Brian, it's your Ottawa Senators. And we basically just have cold streaks to talk about for them this week. I wanted to first bring up Drake Batherson, who's been pretty meh lately. Only 3 points in his last 9 games. Last couple of games saw 0 points and only 1 shot. So he's not even helping you with the peripherals this past week. He started the year strong. He's really faded. I'm just curious to know if managers should be concerned about him. And also Shams wanted us to talk about Jake Sanderson, who, we brought up when Shabbat got injured. By the way, Shabbat was already skating today, so maybe he'll be back soon. But in the meantime, we were like, okay, well, take Sanderson. He's on the top power play, but he's kind of been, he had 2 assists actually versus Buffalo. But aside from that, not too much. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on Batherson and Batherson and Sanderson. Obviously, like Batherson's someone you have to hold, but I'm just curious to know how concerned you would be if you had him. And then for Sanderson, is he a drop or is he still a hold until Shabbat comes back?
Okay. Where should I start? I guess I'll start with Batherson, who's unfortunately spent some time on the third line lately with I'll just start that over. Okay, let's start with Batherson, who is not a great spot in the depth chart these days. Has been flirting with the third line with Shane Pinto and Tyler Mott, which isn't a really fantastic place to produce from. If Ottawa's trying to make a top 9 and you think Pinto is a legit piece there, and with Batherson, then maybe they can make something of that. But we were already concerned about Batherson sharing time in the top 6 instead of being on like a straight up top line. So this is not a better situation for him at all. The thing with Batherson, though, is he's still on a 70-point pace, even with this recent cold run. And I see some low shooting percentages from him and a low on ice shooting percentage for Batherson at 5-on-5. But I would still, so it's like there's reason to believe he could keep this up, but I don't think he can keep this up if he spends extended time on the third line. And right now, I think the biggest danger to Batherson is that he's on the third line when the Sens start winning. Like, they are mired in a slump. This is not going well. This is not the season that the Sens thought they'd be having. Lots of talk about firing the coach and expressing confidence in the coach. So one side, the media, of course, and the other side, the GM. So I think I'll just say it that way. I think if Ottawa turns things around with Batherson in the wrong place, it's like roulette. Like, if Batherson happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, that might bode really poorly for him. So I would just want as many turns in the top 6 for Batherson coming up as possible so that when the Sens do put together a couple wins, he finds himself in the right place and the coaching staff isn't like, oh, this is really working with Batherson on the third line. That would be bad.
Okay, yeah, and Jake Sanderson, I guess.
Oh,
He
yeah.
hasn't really been that bad, Shams. Like, come on, what did you expect from this guy?
Yeah, exactly. I think Sanderson is mostly meeting expectations. The guy, and like, I don't think his ice time hasn't, as we said, like he hasn't been taking all of Shabbat's ice time. He's been taking a chunk of it, but not all of it. Ottawa was outclassed by the Devils on Saturday, so he had nothing to show for that except 3 blocks. Yeah, Elon, I don't know. I think Sanderson has been about what we would have expected. If you were expecting a whole bunch of power play production from him, I'm sorry, that hasn't come. But he has 3 power play points in his last 6 games, so that's also nothing to sneeze at. I think we're good. I don't see much storyline here with Sanderson right now. So Shams, if you feel free to elaborate on the server because you have a really good eye for these things. But I'm just like, yeah, I think he's still roughly meeting expectations.
Yeah, I think if I had him in Cacupful, I would hold, but I wouldn't be like, I'm expecting this guy to be like a sure thing for the rest of the season kind of guy. Just like right on the line. Okay, let's go to Edmonton now, the next most popular team here. I guess we're running through the Canadian teams. There's been now 3 games in a row for Stuart Skinner. They've all been great. Like Skinner's just had an amazing season, right? But now the fact that he's played 3 in a row, 3 quality starts, he stopped 31 of 34 in the big 4-3 overtime win over Vegas yesterday, a really strong opponent. To me, like, I mean, if I was running the Oilers, I'd be like, this goalie controversy is like decided. It's over, right? Like, congrats to anyone who added Skinner when they had the chance. Jack Campbell, like, I really don't see a reason to hold him unless you're just expecting that they have to give him another chance. But it's just like, again, like Swayman, like at this point, is Jack Campbell really going to get like more than 50% of the games when like Stuart Skinner has so clearly been better than him? It's a lot like Husso last year stealing the job from Binnington. Really reminds me of a similar, like, seems the same to me at this point. And the Oilers aren't one of these teams that really, has the luxury of trying to like help Campbell get back. They got to go for it, right? This is their window. So I don't know, Brian, if you have a different opinion. And like, obviously we don't run the team and we don't know, but to me, if I was running the team, it's just like Stuart Skinner is clearly your best goalie. And look at, you're paying a lot of money to have Jack Campbell as your backup, which isn't ideal, but you're also paying very little money to have Stuart Skinner as your starter. So just like be happy with what you have. Don't worry about who's getting which money, right? Okay. And then also Shams wanted us to talk about Darnell Nurse, who had 2 assists yesterday. Before that was pointless in 4. He asked us to talk about Nurse because he doesn't get that many points usually, aside from that last game, but he's usually such a great banger. But he's down hits. He's not hitting as much. So it's really hard to read into. I see that like he's down a minute or so a game. Is that like all we can really look at to try to determine if there's a reason why Nurse has been hitting a little bit less?
Well, we can look over his like rate stats per 60. This is tracked on Natural Stat Trick, and his hit rates are like they're not as high as they've been at times, but like basically Nurse has seasons where he hits a lot and seasons where he hits like a moderate amount. And this so far is a season where he's hitting a moderate amount. He has lost 70 seconds of 5-on-5 ice time per night, which isn't really going well for him. He did have that 4-game cold snap, but like, I don't think there's a need to panic. I think again, like, I don't think there's anything not to like here. Sure. Yeah. You are missing out on a couple hits. Like last year, Nurse was averaging 7.5 hits per 60 minutes. This year, it's 5.5 hits per 60 minutes. So it's not over each 60 minutes that he plays. It's not a huge discrepancy there. But I can see why you might find yourself a little disappointed, especially with that little scoring drought he went through. But all in all, I think Nurse is also delivering about what I'd expect him to. For Stuart Skinner, over delivering for sure. And that's not to say you can't keep it up. I don't know. He's won 3 in a row. Or sorry, he's had 3 amazing starts in a row that he could have won. He won 2 of them, stopped 31 of 34 against Vegas, hard opponent. He stopped 40 against 42 at Florida, hard opponent. And against LA, he stopped all but 2 of the 31 shots he faced and took the L. So that's a game he definitely could have won. So why not keep running with Skinner till he slips? And if he doesn't slip, it's not an awful problem to have in Edmonton. Elon, I like your cognitive dissonance, like the what you said to what they could use to deal with the cognitive dissonance in Edmonton, which is like, okay, well, this is the total amount we're paying for goalies. We're getting pretty good value for it. There could be some injured pride in the Edmonton front office if Skinner doesn't falter, but I'm sure they'll trade that to have a legit steady number 1 goalie that their incredible offense can ride.
Yeah. Adam is saying in the chat here, Skinner's an RFA this offseason, so if they make him the bona fide starter, his price will go up. Like, yeah, But I mean, if you're an Oilers fan, you're like, you got to go for it every year while you have McDavid and Draisaitl, right? And if you're not, you're like selling yourself short. So I don't run the team. I feel like you go with the goal that's going to help you get a lot of wins. Let's next go to the Colorado Avalanche. And I guess the main thing I wanted to bring up here is that I really blew it. And I believe you did as well, Brad. We both dropped Arturi Lehkonen in the our couple divisions. And I think we recommended on the show that maybe he wasn't going to be like that. And he was on the top line, not really producing. And then at one point he was, brought under the second line. We were like, okay, maybe we've seen what his ceiling is. Well, we were wrong. Okay. 6-game point streak. He's crushing it again on the top line, top power play with McKinnon and Rantanen. He should be rostered in 100% of leagues. And this is probably going to be the kind of thing that keeps me up at night for the rest of the season, I believe.
Yeah, but I think you're not like, I think you need to forgive yourself. I feel bad about dropping Lehkonen in 2 leagues also, but the problem wasn't that we didn't see the potential there. The problem was that his schedule was garbage, right? While he was snake bit, Colorado had 2 consecutive weeks where they only played 2 games. And at least, if I'm remembering right, at least one of those games in each of those weeks was a busy night. So a guy who wasn't putting in points despite being in a really great position was going to play 1, maybe 2 games for you over a 2-week stretch. You're going to hold on to him? No, you're going to stream him out unless you're in a really patient position, which neither of us are. It's really hard to be in a really patient position in the cupful, which is a great part of it. Like Lehkonen's underlying numbers were always decent. And then the Nichushkin injury and an extended prognosis for how long Nichushkin would be out has obviously helped give Lehkonen some entrenchment in that great deployment he has. But I am with you, Elon. Like, it is a bit like, I feel bad about it, even though I can look back and say, yeah, I understand what I did that. I can also say I gave up on Arturi Lehkonen too soon.
Yeah. And if anyone has him out there, Adam, for sure. Like, better than even Kirby Doc, I would say, who's like someone I'm very high on, but I'm even higher on Lehkonen.
That would be a good comparison.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and Kirby Doc, as much as I love his line mates, I love Lehkonen's more. All right. So next up, the Philadelphia Flyers. Man, this team, it's like kind of sad. I feel bad. I'm not even a Flyers fan, right? But like, they brought in Tortorella, and he really seemed to be turning things around for this team that we really had no expectations from. And I was like, good for them. Okay, look at this. A team exceeding our expectations. But these injuries are ravaging them. Like, Couturier is out, Atkinson's out, JVR already out. Now I just saw that Konechny missed Saturday's game with an upper body injury. Apparently he hurt his right hand. So who knows how long he'll be out from that. That's Scott Lawton, one of their, heart and soul guys, I guess, got hurt yesterday versus Montreal. So I don't know. But who is still there? Owen Tippett. And he's really stepping up lately. He's been on the top line with Frost and Farabee, at least on Saturday. He had 2 goals versus the Habs and 6 shots. He's on a 4-game point streak. So he's only 5% rostered on Yahoo. At least that was the case when I was preparing for this show on today, Sunday morning. He should be rostered in many more leagues, I believe. Owen Tippett is on a great run, and now he's getting the best deployment you could get on Philly, because really they don't have anyone else, but it doesn't matter, right? I think Owen Tippett has earned his spot on more of people's rosters than he's gotten so far.
Yeah, he has, for sure. Like the rumored finisher, Owen Tippett. He's finishing. It's happening. And Tippett's shooting, right? You need to shoot to finish. And Tippett is shooting steady 3 shots per game all season, which we noted before he started finishing and liked him as a spec ad. And here he is, and not only shooting and finishing, but thriving. Tippett saw 21 minutes a night last night, thanks to 5.5 minutes on the top power play unit, of course. But still, like, John Tortorella is not an easy guy to please. So to see Tippett, who kind of, like, to me, doesn't fit the profile necessarily of a guy who might endear himself to Tortorella, has apparently done that for this week. Anyway, we'll see what comes in the future. I think Tippett is probably still converting a little over his head, and he's still on a weak team where the top line is like barely a top line. It's a top line in name, but not necessarily in function. Yeah, I think Tippett could probably be good. Like, he's currently on pace for more than 60 points. I think 55 points would be more reasonable. But this is to say, I would add him if he's available, and I'd keep rostering him for sure until he cools down, assuming that he cools down. I think he will. Also, Elon, I think you might have just buried the lead a little with what's going on in Philly about what's going wrong. I just wanted to point out Carter Hart now with 5 consecutive sub 900 starts, sub 890 starts. This is it. They were riding a crazy like 945 Carter Hart. Maybe your fantasy teams were too, might be kicking yourself now for not selling when you had the opportunity, when you thought maybe, just maybe, he can keep this up. He's been an 874 goalie over his last 5 games, which has been one big reason why those dubs have turned into L's.
Yeah, I mean, but also it's probably all connected, right? All these injuries probably don't help Carter Hart's, because like, remember that year? I think it was the first COVID year. It was like the team was so decimated, and he was like, it's tough to probably play goalie behind. Not everyone's Karel Melka, who could somehow put up these amazing performances, even though you're behind such a terrible team, or at least terrible looking team. But yeah, too bad for Carter Hart. I think he could turn it around, but it would probably help if Philly could just get some players out of the infirmary here. Also, Andy is saying in the chat here that I also buried another lead or missed a big storyline, that Morgan Frost on the top line is also big news. I guess Hayes is still doing well, but Frost had a big game in terms of TOI, played 23 minutes in that game versus Montreal. And he was also on the top power plays. He's also someone to watch. I guess another guy slumping right now is Tony DeAngelo. Just 1 assist in his last 5 games. He had a great start. Now down to just a 46-point pace. I personally think now would be a good time trying to get Tony DeAngelo, but I guess it depends how much you believe in Philly being able to bounce back, even with all these players hurt. I'm curious. I wish I could see what they would be like with Couturier, Atkinson, JVR, Konechny, like all in the lineup with Tippett and Frost and Tony DeAngelo. Like maybe this team we'll never know, but I'll bet you they could be good. I mean, okay.
Maybe they could be okay. I think that's probably the way to summarize. DeAngelo has been struggling too, though, as you mentioned. In the last 7 games, like Philly's struggling, not just Carter Hart, on the power play. They've converted just twice on 20 chances. And DeAngelo pointed on one of those 2 goals on the power play in the last 7 games. So that's good. One thing I like about DeAngelo, though, is that, he's still taking 2.5 shots per game. He's generally been a pretty decent converter for a defenseman. Right now, there's just not a whole lot going in at 5-on-5 or on the power play when DeAngelo is on the ice. So as far as what your expectations might be for DeAngelo going forward, I think he can stay on track for that 50-ish that I think I figured he'd be going into the season. I know there was hope for more. Some people thought less. I'd say it's more likely that DeAngelo finishes above 50 than below. Like what we're seeing lately is too cold for him. I don't think he's disappeared. It's just been a tough time for Philly. As you mentioned, there's several reasons for that. But that means it's been a tough time for Tony DeAngelo. And you hope they have the personnel and the chemistry to figure things out so that Tony DeAngelo can get going for you again before too long.
Okay, next up, let's go to the Calgary Flames. I'm surprised, pretty low on the list compared to all those other Canadian teams, but they've been changing up their lines again recently. Huberdeau at one point was on line 3. Then I guess on the last game, they were going Huberdeau with Coleman and Backlund. Anyways, then like they swapped at one point, and then Backlund and Lindholm swapped. So anyways, I don't even really want to dive into it. All I'll just say is that whatever they did in that last game versus Florida on Saturday got the job done. They won 5-4 in the shootouts. That's good. Elias Lindholm, the other, we already talked about Elias Pettersson. The other Elias is also doing really well right now. 8 points in 4 games recently for Lindholm, almost up to a point per game on the season, even after that slow start. So obviously not much you could do there. He's probably rostered in most leagues, but anyone who was able to trade for him or buy low after that slow start must be really, really happy right now. And of course, Brian, we have to once again bring up Adam Ruzicka, who we brought up last week, being like, this guy's on the top line, and we were talking about him as like a deep ad. In deep leagues, maybe take a look at this guy. He had himself a week. His 3rd multi-point game in his last 4 was yesterday versus Florida. Like I said, he had 2 goals and 1 assist. Like I said, like last week, we talked about him as a deep streamer. Any chance this Adam Ruzicka is not like just a streamer, but like actually for real and someone that could keep this up? Like, I don't know. It's fantastic. And we're going to talk soon about this Parsonen guy on Nashville. So like maybe we could even put a stamp here and remember to compare those two when we get there, because there are 2 like random no-name guys who all of a sudden are top liners producing. And Ruzicka, wow, what a game versus Florida. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and of course you're linking Ruzicka and Lindholm because they're producing together, right? That line Lindholm to Foley and Ruzicka is clicking real well lately, and Lindholm is picking up points as a result, which is, it's nice to see. Elias Lindholm seems like a decent player, and it's nice to see that there is a line that he's found that's working for him. Of course, one thing that's really working for that line is that Adam Ruzicka has scored 4 times on his last 6 shots. And when you're asking if you got to go add Ruzicka, I think you do got to go add Adam Ruzicka while things are going in. Keep in mind, they might stop. And the bright side here, too, is that I don't think Ruzicka is inevitably going to be bumped from Lindholm's line. Like, Huberdeau doesn't need to play there. Backlund, who's his current center, or Nazem Kadri should suit Huberdeau just fine as a centerman if that Lindholm line is clicking. So Ruzicka could hang there. The downside, of course, is that Ruzicka has only 6 shots in 4 games. So if and when the goals stop, Ruzicka may be a tough guy to roster as a light contributor elsewhere on the score sheet, like maybe Alex Chiasson type vibes. Of course, that's a low bar, though. I like Ruzicka. I'm more interested in Ruzicka right now than I ever really have been in Chiasson's general career pattern. So yeah, go grab him. Just be mindful that he's over scoring and he doesn't shoot a lot. So be ready to cut ties whenever the goals start regressing.
Yeah, or like when they change the lines up again, like check game day lines.
Which could happen. Daryl Sutter seems eternally grumpy.
Yeah, like already in the last game, Ruzicka, I guess, was off the top power play. So it was even more exciting for him when he was top line and top power play. But last game, yeah, if he's playing with Lindholm, he's still pretty interesting, but that could change at any time. Okay, next up, we are going to Pittsburgh, who's playing right now. They just, I think, finished the second period, or they're about to, versus Chicago. Meanwhile, yesterday on Saturday, they shut out the Jets, and Tristan Jarry got the shutouts. So similar to Thatcher Demko, these goalies that have been struggling all year, maybe we're starting to see things turn around. It was just one good game for Tristan Jarry, but that's the start. Tom's before that game had asked us to talk about him and probably to ask if we need to drop him or blah, blah, blah. Obviously, now, okay, you're happy. You got a shutout. Let's see if you can build from there. People were chatting on our Discord about how Jake Gensel scores a lot of empty net goals, which is kind of an interesting thing. Like, Brian, do you have the numbers in front of you of like how many empty net goals this guy has scored this year?
I think he's scored an empty net goal in 4 consecutive games. This is Jake Gensel. So that's a nice little accomplishment for Gensel. If you have him, like my opponent this week does, in the cupful, you're probably really enjoying that. And I'm not even going to say like, but it's going to dry up because Jake Gensel, if he's not scoring on empty nets, he's still going to scoring
on goalies
other ways. But he has 4 empty net goals already this season compared to 6 empty netters in 42 games last year, which was his career high. So he seems on track to beat that number.
Well, the Pittsburgh is up 3-2 over Chicago. So if this score stays until a minute left in the third, Gensel might be out there for another one. And also, I guess people really wanted to talk about Brian Rust, right? That's been the talk of the week. And we already talked about Rust on the podcast last week. We were kind of like, he kind of got a hold on, like Pittsburgh's looked a little old. Things are a bit weird, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, once again today, Pittsburgh has scored 3 goals. And my 2 Penguins that I'm losing faith in, Chris Letang, who I won't bring up Chris Letang, but again, pointless Chris Letang, sadly. And Brian Rust, pointless. Again, Rickard Rakell has a goal and an assist. Other people on this team, Crosby has a couple assists, Malkin has a goal. Somehow Rust is allergic to the score sheet. And so people are wondering if they still need to hold on to this guy or if it's time to consider letting go. So what's your take right now? Because Rust is even worse than Letang lately.
Yeah, one reason you got to hold and be patient. And one reason why is that Russ, there's a couple things that are going to regress for the better for Brian Rust. The first is that his points participation at even strength is at about 40%. That's about how we'd expect a good defenseman to contribute to the offense. Brian Rust, over his career, has generally been in on 60% of the goals scored while he's on the ice. So I think that's one thing that's going to regress and work in his favor. And honestly, we're seeing the same effect on the power play. Right now, Rust has 3 power play points in 19 games, so about a power play point every 6 games. Last year, Rust had a power play point every 3 games, and we also see his points participation down there. Now, his shot rates are down a little as well on the power play, which I don't love to see. Maybe that does mean he'll be less than the 60% participant he's been in the past while he's on the ice. But also the Pittsburgh power play has had a hard time scoring. They are converting while Rust is on the ice on just 10.5% of their shots, which is bad. Usually they convert on at least 15% of their shots. So he's not in on the goals that are being scored. And Pittsburgh probably is having some bad luck in the shots that they are attempting to score on. So with all that said, I think Rust makes a pretty decent buy low candidate for anyone getting, if you can find a manager who's impatient with him, go for it.
I don't know. I don't want to sign off on that. I think that's going to really end up messing someone up. Depends how low. Depends how low you can buy him.
Well, what don't you like about him?
He never gets any points ever.
Okay,
today he's got no shots. Today he's on a cardio session so far, 2 periods in, as we call it on our Discord, right?
Okay,
not even a hit or a block.
With?
Yeah, he's playing with he was bumped from the Crosby line, right? So what is he playing with Malkin and Jason Zucker?
Malkin and Zucker. He's on the top power play.
For how long? Maybe now's the time to sell him before he gets bumped because he's not doing anything there. And Ricard Raquel
Yeah.
just keeps on scoring goals. At what point are they just like, why don't we see what Ricard could do
That
up
would
there?
that would be the glass half empty interpretation. I think it's totally reasonable. Like I think it's an interesting point. You're definitely exposing yourself. Maybe I sounded a little too confident. You're exposing yourself to some risk by going out and getting Brian Rust, but I haven't seen enough. Like I haven't seen anything actually to make me think that this guy can't be at least a 60 point and hopefully 70 point player this season.
I would say maybe if you have Rust, hold on, but I'm not going out and giving anyone good for him at this point. I think you're just like
Elon, let's say you had Rust, I have Doc. Would you make
that?
Yeah,
I take Doc. Give me Doc.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. My Cacopful opponent who has Brian Rust, maybe we'll talk.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I would probably think about it for another minute, not just answer like off the top of my head like that. But right now, I mean, I don't know. I don't want this headache. But anyway, okay. Maybe that's why you're more successful this season in Cacupful. You're like, thinking more long term.
You're the defending Cacupful champ. Don't sell yourself short. I actually wonder if you're playing some kind of mind game with me right now, because you're going to go make a buy low offer in the league we're both in.
I mean, I think last year's Elon and this year's Elon are very different so far. I wish I could channel that person who was so successful in fantasy last year. I'm doing well in my other 2 leagues. Anyways, okay, where are we now here? Rangers is where we're going next. Artemi Panarin, Brian, has gone cold. Okay, but I'm not. Before I even get into this, I'm not saying that I'm worried about Artemi Panarin. I'm just going to bring it up. He's gone cold all of a sudden. He was at the top of the league scoring for a bit to start the season, but now he only has 1 assist in his last 4 games, and even more concerning, no shots in his last 3 games overall. Is he turning into Rob Thomas all of a sudden? Is this a guy who like is going to get you an assist, hopefully, and if not, nothing? Or is this just some weird blip and like don't even think about it? Like, why am I even wasting people's time on a show where we have to talk about 32 teams?
No, I think it's worth mentioning that Panarin's struggling to put shots on net. And I think that shot loss is coming on the power play from what I found. And I think that's because Vincent Trocheck has come into the picture on the power play and is taking shot opportunities from Artemi Panarin. This year on the Rangers power play, Zibanejad leads the team in shots on goal, followed by Trocheck and Kreider, who are tied like a fair deal behind Zibanejad. But last year, Panarin was the 3rd most frequent shooter on that top power play unit. This year, being if you're bumped from the 3rd to 4th most frequent shooter on a power play unit, that's not great. You're losing some time. And the thing is that if it wasn't working for the Rangers, then it would be like, okay, well, they're going to give the puck to Panarin a little more. But their power play leads the league in expected goals rate. So I'm not sure they're about to change anything they've got going on right now. That said, Panarin should probably, even with losing a couple shots here and there, should probably have had another power play goal or 2 by now. And at 5-on-5, Panarin seeing a depressed on-ice shooting percentage, just above 7% versus his usual 10%. So some turnaround is going to come for Panarin, but I wouldn't be surprised if Panarin finishes like at this rate. If nothing changes on that power play, I wouldn't be surprised if Panarin finishes closer to 2 shots per game versus his 2.5 shots per game that he's put up in the past, which might not move the needle much for you. It might not be a big deal, but at least this is your flag that, yeah, there could be a small decrease in shots from Panarin.
Yeah, which is no fun. You want your superstars to be getting at least a few couple points, even if they don't get an actual point. Anyways, let's go to Washington next. We've got an outjury coming soon. We've seen some practice lines. The Capitals don't play again until Wednesday. TJ Oshie in the lineup, and also Dmitry Orlov, by the way. But let's focus on the forwards. Here were the lines at practice day. We have both tweet. Washington does some great beat writers. We always get like 3 or 4 options of who to retweet there. I'm at Game Day Tweets right now, and I'm seeing both even strength and power play lines. That's what you want to see. Thank you to the Washington Capitals beat writers for giving us this information. So it's been Ovechkin with Strome and Connor Sherry, and then Kuznetsov with Milano and TJ Oshie. So, and then also, in top power play, Ovechkin, Oshie, Strome, Marcus Johansson, and John Karlsson, which leaves Kuznetsov out in the cold, which is not great. He's like second line and second power play. So if that lasts, it might be another cold spell in the future for Kuznetsov. But obviously this has been changing a lot. But yeah, TJ Oshie, if he's out there in free agency, I think he's out there in Brian Olive Branch. Okay. I believe Oshie is out there in our league that we're in together. And I'm telling you right now, he's on my radar. I'm interested in TJ Oshie. We'll see. Maybe you'll add him before I get the chance, but I just want you to know that I've added him to my watch list, and I've had thoughts of adding TJ Oshie because I like the
I appreciate the olive branch, but I think I have to initiate a conversation. You have to participate in it. That's how it works. Like I can happily tell you what I think of TJ Oshie, right now. I wouldn't hold back on the podcast or in our DMs if that's how you chose to bring this up.
Please do.
That's
please
the
tell me your
difference
thoughts on
between you and me.
Well, here I am. I'm asking you for your thoughts on TJ Oshie.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot of fluidity, right, in the Washington's top six. Like sometimes Dylan Strome is in the right place, sometimes he's not in the right place, and I think Oshie can kind of can easily fill a need in there. They need someone to step up and do something. One thing that's concerned me about Oshie is that this year he's barely taking over a shot per game. Last year his shot rates declined just a little. This year they've declined a lot. But maybe the saving grace is that his shot attempt rates have stayed reasonably steady, and maybe just more shots are having a hard time finding the net. He's on the top power play, which should be he has been, on the top power play, which should be theoretically a good place to produce, but he has not been able to, he's gotten 2 power play goals there. And I would hope he can keep that up. I don't know, Elon. I think last season was really disappointing for Oshie, a 47-point pace where some indicators of what he was doing right did fall off. The year before was a 70-point pace. I'd be willing to split the difference, but I think if I had to pick over under 60 points for Oshie, I would take the under, just because Washington, it seems like you're with Ovechkin or you're not doing a whole lot in any kind of consistent way. And my concern is that Oshie might not be with Ovechkin.
Yeah, I know. I think that's fair. I mean, he's just an interesting free agent, but not someone I'm saying to go crazy over. And Ovechkin, by the way, is not having the most amazing season. Hopefully it's just a blip. We've seen it before, right? I think there's a few years ago on the pod, Ovechkin had a slow start and we talked about, is Ovechkin finally falling off? We were like, he's so old now. He's 32. Is he maybe falling off now? And then he went and exploded again. So yeah, right now he's only pacing for 37 goals and 70 points. I'm hoping. I want to ask you because we'll just you never want to doubt Ovi, right? But we'll see if he can bounce back to what kind of pace he was putting up last year. Joel saying in the chat, Ovi is washed. Okay, you've heard it here first from Joel,
no,
not my brother Joel.
Joel said Oshie is washed.
Oh, Oshie. Okay, fair. Yeah, that's probably more likely to be true than Ovechkin.
Yeah.
Where are we going next here? So we've done the Caps, Sharks. Okay. Oh yeah, I just wanted to talk quickly about James Reimer. I feel like we just haven't mentioned his name a lot, and the fact that I brought up Jonathan Quick last week, I feel bad about that because he really did very poorly, and now maybe Cal Peterson is starting to take over. So forget everything I said about Jonathan Quick, and hopefully now I won't jinx James Reimer, who also is not having the most amazing season, but considering what we were expecting going into the season, he's pretty much taken over the job. Maybe we thought that he and Kakkonen would be closer to 50-50, but no, Reimer is clearly the starter. He had a huge game for the Rangers on Saturday. He stopped 41 of 42 versus the Rangers. Too bad the Sharks couldn't give him any run support until there was 17 seconds left and it was too late. He had that one stinker versus Detroit on Thursday, which probably left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But aside from that, Reimer's having a pretty solid season. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year. I wonder if the Sharks, they haven't been so terrible, right? So maybe they're just going to ride him and try to go for it. Not you know what I mean? Not just throw in the towel and just sell him at the deadline, or either way, he'll be a UFA. So just a guy to keep on our radar. He's not out of the league yet. James Reimer's actually looking pretty decent as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he has. Well, okay. I wanted to agree because his overall numbers, they look decent, and he has seemed to win the job, which is great. And I believe there were a lot of folks saying Kakkonen was just going to take the job and run, and we warned that. I don't know if it's a maybe I don't know, but Kakkonen has never really proven that he can take a number one job, and he hasn't yet. He's played really poorly. The thing with James Reimer is that he's also at 5-on-5, not played great. But shorthanded, James Reimer has an insane save percentage. How much? Want to guess what James Reimer's shorthanded save percentage is?
9. I feel like I'm on Price is Right. 970.
Oh, you had the first two digits. 979. Wow. On an expected 897 when league average is somewhere around the mid 880s. That's crazy. He has given up just one shorthanded goal against. Which is
clutch.
Yeah. So you could say that, or you could say that these things tend to fluctuate a lot and that this will fall off. So if you can actually convince, and I sort of poo-pooed Kakkonen earlier, but I think Reimer's shorthanded save percentage won't sustain, then the Sharks will turn back to Kakkonen and it'll become sort of like a who sucks less sort of situation, or who can get hot. But that is I don't know. I don't have a ton of faith in either guy. So if you have Reimer and you're riding him because of how well he's doing, and goalies are scarce in your league, this would be a really excellent time to check the trade market and see what you can pull back.
I feel like you wouldn't get much, to be honest. I'd be curious to see. Tweet at us if you have James Reimer, you could actually pull something worthwhile. I think unless you're getting like a really good return, I would just hold. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the trade market is. I assumed it was low, and I was even surprised to see that he's doing so well when I was looking into the episode for this week. But okay, Brian, we still got a ton of teams to go, but let's take a little break here. We've gotten a taste of what it's like to jump around the league, talk about all of our friends. I don't know what I'm saying here. Talk about all of these teams that we have crushes on. And now we're going to stop and ask all the valuable listeners here. Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing. And ask all of the valued listeners to go and download part 2 of this episode, which should already be in your podcast feed. So thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed the first half of this mega episode, prancing around the league, giving a take per team. And we'll be back with all the rest of the teams in just a bit. All of these non-popular teams, according to the patrons, because we've been going in order. But yeah, hope you like the show, and we'll see you soon. And now I'm seeing Brian's messaging me saying, keep going. And I'm like, well, I missed it. That's okay. We'll do it all in part 2 because it wasn't Kraken next. We still had Devils and then Kraken. So, all right. How's everyone doing? Brian, you doing okay? Ben, whenever I'm editing short shifts and Ben has like a guest on or like even one of his interviews, whenever he like does the ad break, then he like always asks the person, you doing okay? You need anything? You want to take a break? Want to get some water? And then the person's always like, yeah, I'm good. I think there's never been a time where the person was like, yeah, I need a break. They're always like, yeah, let's go. So
yeah, because they see how long they've already spent with you beyond their expectation.
No, this is with Ben. I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, you missed what I said. That's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'm just happy that you're listening to me during the actual show, so I'll take it. All right, let's get back to the pod here. All right. Yes! Welcome everybody back for part 2 of this mega episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, where we've been talking about every single team in the NHL and finding some fantasy nuggets to help you be successful. I am once again your host, Elon Dubrowski, and with me to continue through the final, I think, what do we have, 20 teams to go? It's Brian Combe. Brian, I want to go right to the New Jersey Devils, who are a very good team. So how are you? Are you doing as well as the Devils are doing? How, if you wanted to use that as a benchmark, how are you feeling halfway through this episode?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like a New Jersey Devil. Let's keep going.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess there's so much positive there, but we've already sort of drooled about all of these players over the past couple of weeks. So let's just look at Thomas Tatar, who was a huge bust because we drooled about him too much last week. He was on this amazing hot streak. We told people, go grab this guy. Like, you definitely want him, even though Devils only play 3 times next week and a couple times on busy days. We were like, doesn't matter. Get this guy. Anyway, he stunk. No points in those games. Now the Devils actually have a decent schedule next week. They play 4 times. Edge was asking, are we still telling people to hold? Like, I guess it's like, I don't know if anyone's going to add him if they didn't. Like, after everything we said last week, if you didn't add him, I'm sure you're not rushing to add him now. But if you had added him, are you holding, or is it time to move on to the next shiny object because he's fallen off?
I'm holding on to Tomas Tatar. I'm not going to give up on him so soon. It took me a long time to believe in him again, and I'm not going to, even though it would be easy to like go right away. I look at what he did last week, and I'm thinking, yeah, I think Tatar's still okay. He's on the ice for 4 goals last week, no points on them, which is honestly not a big deal to me. If he participates in 2 of those, it's 2 points. We're not really having this conversation. Maybe the one concern, though, and the thing you should be watching if you do have Tatar on your roster, watch his ice time. He had 16 minutes 3 games ago, 14 and a half minutes 2 games ago, and 13 minutes and 20 seconds in the most recent game for the Devils. So if those time on ice, if those minutes keep dipping or stay low, then I think you can move on. Otherwise, I'll give him another week because he's still playing with Nico Hischier, which we said basically was the reason for his success. And if he can hold that spot, he could be a season-long hold. And I'm sticking to that until I see a longer stretch of futility from him.
All right. So you've got 1 more week, Tomas Tatar. And otherwise, you're back to what I was thinking about you like at the start of the season, which is very low. All right. Let's go to the Seattle Kraken now. Philip Grubauer off the IR. He hasn't played yet. I don't like that. I think that Yahoo or these like fancy platforms should be like only when the player like plays their first game should they come off IR, because that's annoying. Now I had to like figure things out just to like make room for him when he wasn't even playing. Annoying. But anyway, what I did is I dropped him because Martin Jones has been so good. He had another strong outing on Saturday, stopping 27 of 29 in the 3-2 win over LA. Okay, so this is what we were talking about at the start of the show, this infamous conversation, or one-sided conversation, I guess, where you were wondering if it's time to just drop the Kraken tandem. I guess my question is, like, is it a tandem, or is this like a Skinner Campbell situation where maybe like Grubauer is the backup now because Martin Jones has been so good? Like, why should, like, probably what's going to happen? Here's my prediction. Grubauer is going to get a game soon, maybe even the next game. And I think he will either play really well, in which case we should be nervous as Martin Jones managers, or he'll stink, in which case you could breathe a sigh of relief as a Martin Jones manager, being like, okay, I think I've got the starter here because Grubauer just continues to stink. So if I had Martin Jones, I would still hold on and see what happens with that next Grubauer game. But I don't see a reason to hold Grubauer because there's no way he's like taking over as a volume guy now, considering how well Jones has done, right?
I tend to agree with you. I had Grubauer stashed in IR and I had Jones. And when I saw that Jones stopped 27 of 29 against LA for the win on Saturday night, that was all I needed to see to drop Grubauer. Because look, Jones could turn into a pumpkin again at any moment. 947 save percentage over 8 games. This is the longest. Remember last year, Elon, when Jones strung like 3 games together? And I went back over the previous 5 years to find out if he'd ever done that. And I think the answer was like, yes, but it was like 3 years earlier. This is the best Martin Jones has really ever played since his rookie season. And while I might not believe in it, he's shown enough for a team like the Kraken have won 6 of 8 and 1 regulation loss since he's been their full-on starter. This is a team that's struggled only, well, maybe not only, but largely because of their starters, Grubauer's inability to make a save for so freaking long that I don't think, even if he plays well, that they're going to look away from Martin Jones. And yeah, Grubauer, I dropped Grubauer thinking, okay, he's going to come in, he might do okay, or he might let in the first shot, which he's done so many times. And then they're just going to keep going back to Jones. Seattle doesn't have time to waste here. So I think they keep going with Martin Jones so long as he's given them results. And I think he starts 2 out of every 3, even though Grubauer is the highly paid first stringer.
Yeah. I mean, they'll obviously
on the cap sheet, of course.
Right, of course. Yeah. I mean, obviously it depends on like their performance in each game. Like obviously as soon as like Jones struggles, then like Grubauer gets a shot, but that makes whatever. For now, Grubauer, I think we're in agreement, not interesting because like at the very least, Martin Jones for now has this job. And then if things change, whatever, grab someone out of free agency or not if they just turn into a tandem. Underpants Gnomes wanted us to talk about Beniers, who he wrote still pointless, not including tonight's game. So that was yesterday. And then I believe Beniers did actually end up getting a point in that game versus LA. So yeah, better than pointless. Instead, I'm seeing 2 points in his last 7 games. So still been a pretty cold stretch for Matty Beniers, who we had high hopes on going into the year. Next week, Seattle has a bad schedule once again. Like they only play on Wednesday, Friday, and then I think Saturday. So probably you're not even getting Beniers into your lineup on Wednesday, Friday, because those are both like super busy days. Time to stream him out. That's Underpants Gnome's question. And I think my answer is probably, unless it's like a really deep league, right?
I think, yeah, or a keeper of any kind, like a deep enough keeper, or definitely like don't drop Beniers in a dynasty. But yeah, that top line doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot in Seattle, and they could turn it around. But I had an opportunity to trade for Beniers this week, my Kalen Addison for Beniers. I looked at Beniers hoping to see something I liked. I couldn't find anything I liked, so I rejected the trade and have also since dropped Kalen Addison. So I gave up a free Beniers, which means I feel like you should too. Like if you like Jaden Schwartz is a free agent, I think in most leagues by now, Matty Beniers should be too, even though his upside is higher. Until I see something more happening, I can't really be committed to the guy if I'm in a situation where I can't afford to wait another 2 or 3 weeks to see what happens.
Yeah, I guess he actually had 2 assists in that game versus LA. So I guess already, it's one game and I would like to see more shots, but I mean, whatever. If you want to hold on for a little longer, but I think you could also probably let him go.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That like I looked at him before that 2 assist game. Maybe that buys him a stay of execution here. See if he can keep that up. But
okay. Yeah. Next up, we're going to Chicago, a team that is struggling, but they're only down 3-2 versus Pittsburgh. They'll probably lose 4-2. And like we discussed, Jake Gensel will probably score an empty net goal. We'll find out by the end of this recording, probably. But in the meantime, who do we want to talk about here? We've talked about a lot of Chicago Blackhawks over the season. I guess we could mention that Caleb Jones had been manning the top power play and Seth Jones is absent. And then Caleb Jones was pointless in 5 games and had a brutal -5 outing on Wednesday. I say -5. Who talks like that? He was -5. And then he ended up getting benched versus Boston on Saturday as punishment or to learn. Now he's back in the lineup today. and he's back on the top power play, I guess, for what it's worth. I don't know. I'm kind of over him. I know that at one point we were saying like, oh, if he's going to take over on the top power play, it's kind of interesting, but it's almost reminded me of like, Columbus's situation where Bjork is on the top power play. And it's not like we're like telling people to go and grab Bjork because he's going to be so amazing. Like maybe Caleb Jones will get your power play assist every once in a while, but I think you can move on safely if you had him.
Yeah, I agree. He's not someone like I dropped him earlier this week, even though he was going to get me an extra game. And I don't have any regrets. Like Chicago also went 5 forwards for some. Well, I haven't seen the lines yet for them this game, but they went 5 forwards on their power play for some of the last games. And the biggest time on ice getter on defense with the man advantage was Philip Roos, who's a 23-year-old rookie.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Jones was scratched in that last game.
Yes. But Roos, he has 3 points in 10 games, doesn't do much of anything, had 6 points in 50 games in the top league in Sweden last year. So like I agree. What I'm saying with you, Elon, is it is very much a Columbus situation where I'm not that like I'll stream in the top power play guy, but I'm not holding on for dear life.
Okay. And actually Shams is correcting us. It looks like today, Caleb Jones is not on the top power play. He has the most point time for a defenseman, but they've been going 5 forwards again.
So there you go. And why wouldn't they? I don't think Caleb Jones is an upgrade on even like I don't know who's playing the point.
Like defensively, he's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a shame. Let's go now to the Minnesota Wild. Brian, you dropped Kalen Addison, so I guess that answers that question. He has been a total bust, even though he was getting his own top power play time, which was exciting. The guy who's in an exciting spot right now is Sam Steele. Remember him? He was like a guy on Anaheim. I remember we used to talk about Steele and Terry as like the up and coming guys on Anaheim, and one of them turned into a superstar, and the other one wound up on Minnesota, and probably a lot of people didn't even realize he was on Minnesota until Saturday, where he was centering the top line, and he had a big game. He had a goal and an assist. He assisted on the overtime winner. So yeah, I feel like he's probably a good deep ad right now. We'll have to see if it lasts. We've already talked about Freddie Gaudreau there, and obviously Hartman, and I think did Rossi get a shot? Maybe, I don't know, for half a game. Anyway, Sam Steele's there right now, and he had a good game, so he'll probably be there for the next game. So if you have a spot, someone that we have to at least call out on the podcast, and we'll see if he can hold on for a little longer.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's it. Like Sam Steele is what, like plan F or G for top line center in Minnesota. And I hadn't gotten the impression to this point that he's been making a positive impression in Minnesota. But this is where the Wild are at again. I guess like the team is underperforming. It's a bummer. And the rule is you want the guy who plays with Kirill Kaprizov. And that's who Sam Steele is right now. Sam Steele is that guy.
Okay, yeah. And then I guess on the other side, Matt Boldy is really disappointed. Matt Boldy has really disappeared after his really hot start to the year. He only has 1 assist in his last 8 games. He's still on the top power play, but that's not helping him much. Just like similar to Kalen Addison, being on the top power play, I guess, isn't everything. Boldy was playing with Nick Petan and Freddie Gaudreau on Saturday, which are not very exciting line mates. At what point do we consider Boldy an official snoozer in one-year leagues? I guess we could compare him to Matty Beniers, I guess, another high pedigree young player that we were excited about going into the season. And now I'm wondering if it's just time to say, maybe this isn't going to be the year for Matt Boldy.
That's a very legit thing to say with what we've seen from Matt Boldy lately. Remember, he started the year with 10 points in 10 games. That was so exciting, but now he's done so poorly that he's down from a 82-point pace to a 50-point pace, which, by the way, includes 23 power play points, or at least pacing. Boldy's pacing for 23 power play points on a Minnesota power play that has not been terribly good lately. Boldy is still getting 3 shots per game, but unfortunately, the line he's on, like Nick Petan and Freddie Gaudreau, it's not a good place. So like, remember we were saying earlier that maybe Boldy was getting Fiala going because Fiala was struggling and Boldy was good out of the gate. And so like, oh, Matt Boldy can do anything with anyone, but Petan and Gaudreau are like below anyone. I think they seem fairly replacement level this season. So Boldy has no one else at all to play with. Like there's no one he has that he can get going. So then what for Boldy? And I think the answer is that a 50-point pace seems pretty fair. And if you are rostering Boldy, you might be snoozing, but he'd also be, if he's available in free agency or if you dropped him, he'd be one of the free agents with the highest upside, like of anyone in the pool in most leagues, at least full size. So you just have to be comfortable with that if that's the call you're making. I'm just not sure that Boldy has a path to reaching that upside that excites us all without playing with Kaprizov or even Zuccarello. Like he needs someone, and there isn't anyone aside from those guys who are still mostly playing together for the moment.
Yeah, like he's with them on the top power play, but maybe that's not enough to make him like really exciting guy to have on your fantasy roster. Okay, next up, we are going to the LA Kings, who've gotten a lot of airtime on our Keeping Karlsson network because of their good schedule over these past couple of weeks. Well, this week they had a good schedule, and then if you listen to Dave Betton's stream scheme, which went out on Saturday, Brian, what a look at us, always innovating. And now Dave released a stream scheme on Saturday to give you a little more notice of like which players have good schedules that you want to stream in for next week. And yeah, once again, LA has a good schedule. So you're going to want to get all your, Trevor Moore shares, Arvidsson, if he's out there. Ben talked about on the last Short Shifts episode, which by the way, great fun week of Fantasy Hockey Life co-hosts on our Short Shifts episode, right? So thanks so much again to Victor and Jesse for coming and guesting with Ben and Lewis over on Short Shifts this week. And obviously you can listen to them over on the Fantasy Hockey Life podcast, which we're big fans of. Anyways, Ben was talking about how much he loves Trevor Moore on Thursday. He was like, I even was a little bit like surprised when I think at one point he said like Jesse asked to compare him to Arvidsson, and then Ben was like, oh, I like Trevor Moore better. And it's like not even close. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, it's a bit of a bold take. I think it's at least close, but you go, Ben. I like the hot takes. And yeah, both looked great last week. Trevor Moore obviously had that hat trick and then kept it going. Someone that's not looking great lately, though, is Anze Kopitar, who Tom's wanted us to talk about. He brought it up on our Discord. Only 1 goal, no assists in the last 6 games for Kopitar. He's only pacing for 55 on the season now, which is really low for him. That would be among one of his worst ever seasons. So is this a guy who's finally falling off at the age of 35, or is this going to be someone where you're going to say like Brian Russ, like now's a great time to go and get him and see if there's a manager who is going to be like too nervous about him, then you'll be able to get a steal here. For what it's worth, McClellan put Fiala back on the top line in Saturday's game. So Kopitar has someone new to play with instead of Gabe Vilardi, who maybe becomes a snoozer now himself in the vein of Matt Boldy. So Brian, is Kopitar a rust? Is Vilardi what was I saying? A Boldy? I'm getting very confused here. But anyways, Kopitar. Let's just focus on him. Let's just focus on Kopitar. Are we worried about this guy?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Anze Kopitar. He's down 30 seconds a night at 5-on-5, which is what we knew would happen, like a slow decrease in his role until he can't do it anymore. Well, Deneau's role will increase. His shot rates have taken a slight tumble too. One thing with Kopitar that isn't going his way, even when it should, is that his on-ice shooting percentage is below 7%. Though, actually, for many people, for many top-line players in the NHL, that would be like a 2% departure, at least from his usual number. But Kopitar has always had a pretty low on-ice shooting percentage, especially for someone we consider a pretty reliable scorer. So I don't even know that there's a huge amount of like positive regression to come for Kopitar here. We're also seeing some problems for Kopitar on the power play. He has 4 power play points in 22 games, which is pacing for just 15 points with the man advantage, when Kopitar is usually comfortably above 20 power play points. And this is a bit of him. Like he's basically stopped shooting on the power play, which I don't like. But it's also a bit of Kopitar's team. The Kings haven't seemed to figure out their power play yet. They're only converting on 10% of their shots with Kopitar on the ice with the man advantage, and they're converting fewer than 20% of the power play opportunities they get. So all of this to say, I just said a bunch of stuff about Kopitar. I don't see anything overly concerning, but at the same time, I don't see anything like overly reassuring too. And this is kind of a wishy-washy answer, Elon, but I'm not sure where to go with Kopitar from here. Like I would assume we're not about to see his best season ever. I would also assume he can still get on track, but I'm not ready actually to really commit one way or another. I'm curious what you think, because the numbers here aren't really telling me anything. I guess maybe the only other thing to mention is that Kaliev leads the team in power play points. Like no one's succeeding on the power play, and Kaliev's on the second unit. Fiala and Arvidsson have 5 points each. Moore has 4 points, along with Kopitar and Doughty, who's also struggled to put up points this season. So Elon, all of that, I don't know. What's your feeling on Kopitar?
Yeah, he doesn't interest me that much, to be honest. Like you said, like it just doesn't give the vibe that he's gonna like be like bouncing back and having like an amazing season. Maybe he'll do a little bit better, but maybe we're looking at like a 65, maybe 70 point guy, which is like, not a huge number of shots. So he's not, helping a lot aside from his points. So yeah, I'm not especially into him. Maybe we'll see if him playing with Fiala again will get him going. But like the thing is, LA is deeper this year. Like they don't need to rely just on the top line. Now that line with like Arvidsson and Moore and Deneau like is doing really well. And even, you know, Fiala was on the third line crushing it. So we'll see now what happens now that he's swapped in. But yeah, I think that I'm not overly excited. Like Shams asked if I'm snoozing by holding him in a couple. I don't think I would like drop Kopitar, but if you could get a decent return for him, I wouldn't be like, oh no, you need to hold on because he's about to bounce back in a huge way. So I think we're on the same page here.
I think so. Both of us are saying we're not like being like, oh, great buy low opportunity. We're kind of like, yeah, maybe Kopitar is fading out a bit and we don't want to wade into that situation.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Buffalo now. So Comrie is out for weeks, apparently, so we don't know how long he'll be gone. In the meantime, they've called up Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who had a very rough first outing versus Toronto. After all the drama with Brian and I added him just for him to like, I was going to lose that matchup anyways. And you know what? Whatever. I'm still kind of interested in Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He had a nice run last year. He put up a .917 save percentage in 9 games before getting hurt himself. So now you have an opportunity, maybe that you don't have to rush to add him. You can wait until his next start because maybe people are afraid of how badly he did versus Toronto. But Toronto's a tough team, and it was his first game in. So I don't know. I'm curious to know what you think. I just feel like Craig Anderson likely can't handle a heavy workload. So I feel like as long as Luukkonen can put together a couple decent games, which I think he's capable of, like he's a high pedigree prospect. He showed us that he could go on a good run last year, and Buffalo I think is better this year than last year. Though they've been really terrible lately, so it's hard to say. But he's kind of interesting to me if you're in a situation where you could use a goalie.
Yeah, he is. But, you know, one thing I learned about with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's performance last night against Toronto was the definition of Schadenfreude. Like my whole life, I've struggled to really grasp the concept. But after our non-discussion about UPL and then watching the goals get racked up against him against Toronto, I felt it. I felt it, and it was good.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. I'm happy for you.
I am with you, though.
I am.
I believe that you mean that sincerely because it didn't affect your weekly outcome, right?
Yeah, I was going to lose anyways.
Yeah,
so it was a move for the future.
Yeah, and as a move for the future, Elon, I could see UPL taking a similar path to more starts in Buffalo that Comrie did. Remember, Anderson and Comrie were sort of like, you know, neck and neck to start the season, but my belief, and as it turned out was true, that Comrie like eventually would gain more starts. And I think that's it. Like, I think the risk is that, as it was with Comrie at the start, Luukkonen and Anderson are in a tandem until Luukkonen shows like some steady enough play to earn a couple starts in a row. But I don't think it should be too long. Like he's been a Victor from Fantasy Hockey Life. I was chatting with him on our Discord server, and he shared with me that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's goals saved above conceded numbers, which is a stat that describes a goalie's play in a way that you can sort of interpret for the NHL from other leagues, including the AHL. It's always been good for UPL. And this year he had a bad save percentage in the AHL, but Rochester, I was reading this week, has been very bad for protecting their goalies. I would have shared that with you had you engaged in the conversation with me. The trouble for UPL is also that Buffalo is also having a hard time protecting their goalie. So Luukkonen's going to be exposed there. I'm not going to be too discouraged from a tough performance in his first game in the NHL this season against the Leafs. I think he's a competitor. I think there's a good chance he starts 2 of every 3 going forward. And I think there's a decent chance he does well in those starts. So if you are desperate for goalies, like if you're holding Grubauer, hoping he does something, and Luukkonen's available on the wire, I'd make that swap easy.
Okay. Yeah, like I mean, Shane is saying in the chat here, I'm not sure if I'd be adding any Buffalo goalie, which is reasonable. So it depends on your league, right? But if you could use volume, then I do think there's a chance. Like you said, there's a path that he could get some. All right, next up, Brian, we've still got, what do we have? Like about 10, 12 teams to go here. And we'll get to them in just a sec. We'll take a quick break first. Hope everyone is enjoying the show. Let us know if you are. Tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson while Twitter still exists. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right, we are back, and I wanted to go next to the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't have anything too exciting to talk about here. Like, there's no like hot free agents that I think you need to rush for at this point. So how about this? 2 fun questions. Number 1, Jack Eichel. He's just amazing, right? Like, it's not even a question. This is a statement. He's a huge draft steal. I think he fell in drafts this year further than he should have. He's already on a 95-point pace and like climbing. I think next year I could see him going in round 1. Like to me, like I don't see much difference between Jack Eichel and like an Alex Barkov. Maybe even I'd prefer Eichel. Like maybe I think I think that's an interesting conversation, which I think says all you need to know about what I think about Eichel. I asked before about if Elias Pettersson is going to hit 100 points this year. What do you think in terms of just straight up points? And I think Eichel's better for fantasy because he shoots more, though you did talk about how Pettersson's been shooting a lot more, but straight up points, who do you think is going to get more, assuming they both play the full 82 games, Eichel or Pettersson?
I think I'm going to go Eichel just because, and that's like a full line. Look, that Eichel, Stone, Stevenson line just looks really good, like unstoppably good. I don't know, Elon. I'm struggling with this because
you can just say it's close. You can say coin flip, and that's
close.
The answer.
Okay. I'll say coin flip. Like Vancouver plays their top unit more often than Vegas does. Vegas only plays their top unit this year. Eichel seeing a 60% share of his team's power play time and fewer overall minutes than Pettersson is. So, okay. I think I will just go. I'll call it a coin flip, Elon. It's a really good question. Like I'm actually kind of leaning back towards Pettersson now just because that extra power play time, but that's how close it is. I like both these guys. What Eichel's doing at a 95-point pace looks pretty darn sustainable to me. And I think there might even be room for a couple more power play points. And he's gotten in there too, even with only a 60% share of the time. So just be happy if you have either of these guys.
Yeah. And then another guy that you might be happy with if you're in a categories league and one of the categories is blocks, Alec Martinez is a cheat code. He's insane this year. He's had 18 blocks in his past 3 games. There was one game where he had 9 blocks in one game. Blocks, like a defenseman who gets like 2 or 3 a game is like a very good defenseman for blocks. And we like Martinez is lapping everyone. He now has 88 blocks on the season in 19 games. Second place. I mean, Brian, you have my notes here. Listener, try to guess. Whatever. Maybe you'll guess. David Savard with 54. 88 to 54. It's not even close. Okay, so Alec Martinez, got to give him props for just getting in front of every single puck. It would be nice if we could get a few more points to make him actually valuable in fantasy beyond just blocks. Maybe he could luck into a couple more. Like in a couple, he's probably already worth rostering just because that 0.5 per game per block like is adds up, right? And especially if he could get an assist, like 1 assist a week even would make him like look really amazing. So just wanted to shoot him out there.
Yeah, when you said that Martinez was lapping the field in shots blocked, he basically is. There's 9 guys in the league that Martinez isn't doubling in shots blocked per 60 minutes. That's it. And those 9 guys that Martinez isn't doubling, he's almost doubling. So as you said, Alec Martinez bears repeating, a blocked shots cheat code. If those are helpful to your fantasy team, go get them.
Okay, let's go to Tampa Bay now. And we had a question from Kev about Cirelli. So Anthony Cirelli was on the ice for practice the other day, and we still don't know any lines of like where he's going to go. So Kev was asking, does he take Nick Paul's spot on line 2? So it's recently been Paul with Stamkos and Killorn. He's wondering if Cirelli is someone worth rostering a couple. I guess maybe some people stashed him in IR or thinking of maybe grabbing him now. I'll just throw it out there that last year Cirelli had a 46-point pace, and he was playing most of the season with Stamkos and Killorn, ended up with Killorn and Hagel. I guess Stamkos went up to play with Kucherov for a bit. The latest lines this year for Tampa have been Point, Kucherov, and Hagel, and then Stamkos, like I said, with Paul and Killorn. So yeah, maybe Cirelli takes Nick Paul's spot. Is Nick Paul worth rostering a couple right now? Like maybe, like he had a decent run recently, though he's pointless in his last couple games. So Cirelli, I don't know. To me, like I'm pretty bored by Anthony Cirelli, but like it's nice to play with Stamkos. But I think like that 46-point pace last year is probably similar to what I'd expect this year. I don't know. Am I missing something with Cirelli?
No, you're not. There, in his career, he's been in good deployment situations a couple times, and we've always covered it on the show. And he's never really made a whole lot of it. So I don't expect that to change. Maybe he can be a 50-point guy, but he's not somebody that I am like eagerly watching to come off of injured reserve so I can snap him up or make sure he's active in my roster the moment he's healthy. Even if he is playing with Stamkos, like I'll raise an eyebrow. Maybe that puts him into streaming territory. But like I said, he's not someone I have huge expectations for.
Yeah, like if he's on top power play, now we're talking. Okay, then you'll have me interested. But I don't think that's going to happen. Daniel also wanted us to talk about Hedman. He said, "Can you please talk about Hedman? I need someone to tell me he's going to get his top power play spot back." And then with a crying emoji. Yeah, you should be crying because he had nothing no points in the game on Saturday. He actually has no points in his last 6 games, and Tampa has won 4 games in a row. So they're not sad with how things are going. So I don't see any reason why they should switch Hedman back to the top power play if they're being so successful with him manning the second power play unit. And I guess using his energy for even strength time to do defensive things because he doesn't even have a point recently, but they're still winning. So I would be very nervous. Like, I don't think he's going to be pointless forever. And maybe he will get his top power play spot back at some point. It's happened before, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
I don't know. I'm just shaking my head as you say all that. It's a huge bummer. Like Tony DeAngelo or Moritz Seider, whoever drafted them, like you knew there was some risk there. Moritz Seider or Victor Hedman, it didn't feel like there was this risk here. And when this first happened, when he was first taken off the top unit and replaced by Sergachev, we said what we always say, which is, yeah, usually the Lightning try this for a few games at a time and then he goes back. I don't know that Hedman has ever spent this much time off the top power play. I am legit panicking. We're at 4 games now where he's definitely been off the top unit. And there were a couple games before then where like maybe, just maybe he was like on the borderline top unit. So I'm sorry. I have nothing to offer. I don't know. This would be a great question for someone who covers the Lightning professionally. If you get an answer, or if we do, like let us know. And if we get an answer, we'll let you know.
Okay, yeah. So you should be worried. Sorry we couldn't make you feel that much better, Daniel. Okay, next we're going to St. Louis. I mean, you should feel better because he's Victor Hedman. So if anyone is gonna, turn this around, it's him. He's an amazing player. That's the best we could tell you. St. Louis. Okay, last week we talked about how they were struggling. What a change of week makes. What a week for the Blues. These last 4 games have been fantastic. Buchnevich had 7 points in those 4 games, highlighted by 2 goals and 2 assists versus Anaheim. Kyrou, 7 points in those 4 games. He had 3 assists versus Anaheim. Having a game versus Anaheim really helps. By the way, Rob Thomas, 3 points versus Anaheim, 6 over these last 4 games. Ryan O'Reilly has 4 points in his last 4 games. Tarasenko, 3 points in his last 3 games. He was sick yesterday. Braden Shen. So everyone's good now. So I don't really have a question. It's just like good. Like Brian, you said last week that you expect things to turn around, and they have. It happened very suddenly.
Yep, that's all there is to it. We can move on. Like I'm glad we've changed the narrative from Seattle. When will they start scoring to? Oh, yeah, that's it. I think we can probably move on. I'm glad the Blues have changed the narrative from when will they start scoring to they have now started scoring. So things are moving roughly as expected. And let's check in again. Like let's let things play out, and we'll check in again later to see if any one player is struggling to get back on board. But so far, I don't think that's really been the case.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Dallas now. Rope Hintz was a late scratch yesterday. Pete DeBoer said, I don't believe it's anything long-term. I would call him day to day. He skated in the pregame skate and warm up. We'll see tomorrow. So hopefully not a big concern, because that would be very terrible if you have Rope Hintz in fantasy. He's been so good. So there was lots of line shuffling in the 5-2 win over the Islanders yesterday. But probably we don't need to read too much into it because probably Hintz will be back at some point. Jamie Benn, though, another big game. He had a goal and 2 assists. Ben has been on the top power play all season. So regardless of if Hintz is there, like Ben was on the top line for a bit, but whatever, doesn't matter, right? Because he's been on the top power play. He's up to 20 points in 18 games on the season. Jamie Benn didn't even hit 50 last year. And I know he has a high shooting percentage and all that. So, but Brian, like, normalizing for shooting percentage, like what pace should we be expecting from Jamie Benn? Like, is he just like a revitalized, like new guy, like back to how he was like 5 years ago when he used to be one of the most, valuable guys in bankers leagues in fantasy? Because like, I did not see this coming. I can tell you that right now.
Neither did I. Neither did anyone. If anyone was going to have that resurgence this year, we thought, oh, maybe it's Tyler Seguin because he has Mason Marchment to play with. But Jamie Benn, yeah, wow, what a season this guy's having. And it's in a funny kind of way. Ben has 9 power play points in 18 games. Last year, Ben had 11 power play points in 82 games. The year before that, 9 power play points in 52 games. The year before that, 14 power play points in 69 games. Before that, 11 power play points in 78 games. This was all with power play 1 deployment too. So that Ben has managed to score 1 power play point every other game this year on average has been a huge thing for him. And of course, this top power play unit, even though he's getting maybe the same deployment as in some of those past years, this top unit is more potent than it had been in those years. Even then, of course, we can't expect 41 power play points from Jamie Benn. But at the same time, this is the most active a power play role we've seen him in since at least 4 seasons back, which is good news. And to think that maybe there is going to be some season-long relevance for Ben, he's probably in on, like, I think I've made the point, like he's overperforming on the top power play, but it's still good. He's still in a better spot than he has been in the past. At 5-on-5, he's shooting 20%. Before this year, he shoots like 5, 6, or 7%. He's got 8 goals on his last 19 shots. So of course, it's driving a lot of the excitement around Jamie Benn. One thing you might not have noticed in all this excitement is he's playing barely 10 minutes a night at 5-on-5. So this is a really strange turn of events for Benn's career, where he's kind of turning into this power play specialist, but also on a second line, but also barely playing on that second line. I wonder if Ben could manage 20 power play points and, like, I don't know, 25, 30 points at 5-on-5. And even then, he still feels barely relevant. So I think what you do is with Ben is what you've already been doing, which is ride with him for now. Don't get married to him. Let him do stuff for you until he doesn't. And then because there's so little hope at 5-on-5 from what I'm seeing. And as a power play specialist in a deep league, if you want those PPPs, maybe he can help you there. Outside of that, I'm not sure we're going to love him as much the rest of the season as we've loved him so far.
Yeah, but I think it's even fun to say outside of fantasy. Like, it's fun to see just Jamie Benn being good again.
Yeah.
I hope it lasts. Mason Marchment, by the way, had a big game, goal and an assist, and 7 shots on goal in this game over the Islanders that I was just talking about. He got added in a couple tier 1 today. He had been in free agency all week. Brian, did I blow it by not pouncing first on Mason Marchment, or do you think it was just an aberration?
I don't know. I love to see a 3-game point streak from Marchment with a big shots game. It's definitely enough for Marchment to get back onto our radar after he fell right off it. 2 points in 11 games before that. But he's on that second line with Ben that I don't love, and on that second power play unit that is definitely worse than the top power play unit. So Mason Marchment at best on your radar, speculative ad maybe, but I don't think you blew it by not rushing out to get him, but you might feel like you regret it over the next couple of weeks if those shots keep coming. Spec ad.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would go grab him now if he was still out there. Let's go to the Winnipeg Jets now, who have 9 fans in our Discord. If you're a Jets fan, you didn't self-select. That's why you're here at 9:50 on a Sunday, finally getting your team talked about. Then we've got even teams with fewer fans coming up. But yeah, Winnipeg, I thought the Canadian teams would be high, like I said. So Ehlers is out for a while. Like, he was already been out for a while, and now he just had a surgery. So we don't even know. Apparently they, Bonus or whoever said that he's going to be back sometime this season. So make of that what you will. Maybe he even means the playoffs, but it's going to be a while. In the meantime, Mason Appleton is also hurt. So guess who was on the top line with Scheifele and Connor? It wasn't Blake Wheeler. It was also Blake Wheeler didn't even get on the top power play because they had to make room, of course, for Sam Gagner.
Yeah, the specialist.
Oh my God. Anyways,
he's played this role in Columbus. He's played it in Detroit. And he'd already been playing it a little while. He
plays the role of taking fantasy relevance from other players,
yeah,
but not
exactly.
actually getting it himself.
Yes, this is exactly what he's done. He also did in Edmonton for a while too. Of course, the last time Gagner's played this role was back like 6 years ago now for Columbus. He had 18 power play points over 81 games, getting like top unit deployment, and hasn't been on a top unit really in any consistent way since that moment. Until now, Elon, I'm sorry for you and anybody with the same Blake Wheeler shares that you have. All isn't lost, but what?
No, I'm going to say, like, the good thing is they lost this, this dumb game where they played Sam Gagner. They lost 3-0 to Pittsburgh. They couldn't even score on Tristan Jarry, who's been terrible all season. So come on, let's get things fine. Spread out the offense at even strength. Let's get Blake Wheeler up on the top power play. I'm not a brilliant genius, okay, but I think that might be a smarter move to help get a power play goal. Just a hunch.
Okay, yeah, go for that hunch. I traded Wheeler a few weeks back because I didn't love what I was seeing.
No, fair. I mean, I got him in free agency, and I was hoping, and he's now. It looks like I'm going to win my matchup this week. I'm very happy. People are saying in the chat, Brian, you're saying that I'm in a better mood now than I was at the start of the pod when I thought I was going to lose.
Noticed the change in tone since the moment in the chat that someone told you, like, that you realized you were winning.
Yeah, it's winning is fun. I like it. But okay, what was I going to say here? Oh yeah, we're going to
like
Anaheim
it a little
now.
too much.
I like winning Laser Quest also, which maybe makes me play in a way that you don't approve of. But who are you to tell me what to do? Okay, but you're my friend. But yeah, I respect your opinion.
What to do. I'm just telling you, you're my friend, and sometimes you make me feel bad
when I snipe you in Laser Quest from a high spot that you didn't see coming.
Wins first, friends second.
Okay. So what? Well, yeah. So I know it sucks, right? One day I'm gonna have no friends. I'm gonna have all these whatever wins in various games I have played, and I'll have no friends, and that won't be worth much to me, and I'll probably regret it. But what do you want from me? Okay, like I'm
Well,
making my
you
life
you
the
got
best way I
you got
can.
suckers like me who are never gonna leave you, so you don't have to worry about
I
it.
hope so. Okay. Let's go to Anaheim. We got a lot of excitement here all of a sudden. We've got two players very low rostered who are looking very rosterable at the moment because they're both in great deployment situations and producing. I'm talking about, first of all, Adam Henrique, who you've already heard talked about on the stream scheme. And now we're going to give him some love too, because he's been on the top line and the top power play with Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras. What more is there to say? Oh, yeah. How about this? 7 points in his last 6 games. So, yeah, it's probably not going to last forever, but how could you not want a guy with this deployment? Anaheim has a good schedule next week. Go grab Adam Henrique. And if you need a defenseman, forget freaking John Klingberg that we keep on like talking about, even though he stinks. Like, he has only 1 point in his last 5 games. He's been bumped from the top power play for Cam Fowler, who's had 3 straight multi-point games. Oh my God. So again, I doubt it'll last all season, but wowie zowie, Cam Fowler and Adam Henrique sure do look like tempting ads right now, with Anaheim having a good schedule, both of them on the top power play and producing big time lately.
Yeah, Adam Henrique looks like a very promising ad if he's available for you. I'd be surprised. He's been doing so well. I can't imagine how he might not have been snapped up yet. And Adam Henrique put up basically a 60-point pace from this spot last year that he's got on the top line. Last year, he had 11 power play points in 58 games with second power play unit minutes. So this is a promising situation for Adam Henrique. He's basically on a 50-point pace on the whole so far this year, but that seems like the bottom end of Henrique's expected range. I'd put him, up for a 60-point pace again. He definitely seems rosterable, especially with off night schedules. Whenever that's actually helpful this upcoming week, it's not terribly helpful. There aren't off nights. We've been missing off nights for, it feels like, a few weeks now, but when they start happening again, you'll enjoy having Adam Henrique and probably Cam Fowler. Yeah, 6 shots against St. Louis on Saturday. Very out of character for him. He has at least been scoring on the power play. Fowler has just 2 5-on-5 points in 336 minutes played at 5-on-5. He's only been on the ice for 6 goals at even strength. Team is shooting less than 4% with Fowler on the ice. That's not good. So he should be doing a little better. But honestly, even with this power play success, I don't even know that I can really recommend Cam Fowler, where he once played on the top unit, had 18 power play points, and still barely paced for 45 points on the season. And he only took like a shot per game. But hey, if you're desperate for a fourth defenseman who's on he's on top power play, got 6 shots, I would take Fowler for a spin. Absolutely. And hope the shots keep coming. Elon, you mentioned Klingberg. I'll just join the chorus. What a dreadful season. What a fateful moment it was when I drafted John Klingberg 2 spots ahead of the Erik Karlsson that you then took. There was some daylight for Klingberg. He had a 4-game point streak, including a 7-shot game at the start of November. But in the 5 games since that streak snapped, Klingberg has a combined 5 shots and 1 goal, no assists, and has now lost top power play deployment. I still think Anaheim should want to build his value, but really, Klingberg has just nosedived. His shot rates are way down too. Nobody with Klingberg's numbers, not named Klingberg, would be anybody we'd even consider rostering. And it's sad to say that's where we stand with John Klingberg.
Yeah, I mean, he's making $7 million this year. He got that 1-year deal.
Yeah.
How much do you think he's going to get next year?
Well, that's it. The rest of his career is on the line. And with every game that this continues, you got to think that's dollars off the next contract. It's a real bummer.
Maybe now he gets a 1-year deal for like $4 million next year, where he has to prove it. And
he just bets on himself 1 year at a time until he takes like a 7-year league minimum deal.
Zach Fry's asking, would love to hear what players have been the most surprising to you, good or bad, that you would have never thought going into the season. Well, Brian's answer is John Klingberg. He thought that he was going to be good, and he's actually really bad.
I thought this would have gone way better for Klingberg and the Ducks.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the New York Islanders next. Matt Barzal finally scored his first and second goals of the season yesterday versus Dallas. Before that, he was still a point per game guy, only with assists. So managers couldn't have been complaining too much. And now if the guy could actually put some pucks in the net, who knows what the upside is? He's up to 21 points in 19 games. Now, is this finally the year that Matt Barzal gets back to that point per game potential that he showed us as a rookie? Because I don't know. Like, this is one of these guys I didn't really expect it. I thought that we'd sort of locked him in, but I guess we have a new coach in Anaheim. But I guess we have a new coach on the Islanders in Lane Lambert. Maybe we got to give him some credit for finally figuring out how to unlock Matt Barzal. I'm really excited to see him being a point per game guy. I wonder if you're going to throw cold water and say he's overperforming, or if you think this is for real.
I'm not throwing cold water here. Barzal has looked really good this season. Someone asked about him on our Discord server like about 3 weeks ago now, and I couldn't find the message. But whoever brought him up was brilliant because I looked, I was like, oh no, Barzal like overperforming, maybe, probably generally boring. But I was really pleasantly surprised when I wanted to answer the question, and I looked up Barzal and I saw that Barzal's on ice numbers are the best they've ever been. Like the most expected goals rates for him and his line mates that he's ever had, which is weird because Barzal's line mates or their quality really haven't substantially changed on the surface. Wallstrom, Josh Bailey, and Zach Parise are Barzal's most common line mates that he is clicking at like a legit rate with. So things look good for Barzal at 5-on-5. But where they look real good for Barzal is on the power play. He is attempting a good deal more shots with the man advantage than he has in the past. Barzal has career high shot attempt rates there, and the top power play in Long Island also being used more than in the past, getting a greater share of the minutes. This has all helped Barzal get 9 power play points in 19 games. So he's pacing for 40 power play points when his career best is 27 power play points. And somehow the New York Islanders power play doesn't even look that great, but Barzal is cashing in. So I don't know for sure all that's happening there, but on the whole, I think Barzal is for real and ready to pace for beyond 70 points for the first time in 3 years and has that upside of being a point per game player again. So let's keep watching and see if he can keep this up.
Okay. Yeah. Good job to anyone who drafted Matt Barzal. That was a really smart decision and that I definitely didn't make. He was available late, Brian, in our that joint league we keep talking about. You know, it's an 8 keeper and I think he wasn't kept and he fell pretty far in that draft, if I recall correctly. And I think a lot of people passed on him and whoever got him was really smart. We could probably find out who that is pretty easily. But instead, I'm going to go to the Nashville Predators. And finally, let's talk about Juuso Parssinen. So this is part 2 of the Adam Ruzicka story that I wanted to get to, where these 2 no-name players, at least to me, that are coming out of nowhere onto their team's top lines and producing. So Parssinen had a huge week. He had 2 goals, including 1 power play and an assist versus the Islanders, and then another power play assist versus Tampa on Saturday. He's been on the top line and top power play with Philip Forsberg. God, I imagine it's time to jump on this guy. It's kind of a bummer that he's center only. So is Ruzicka, but maybe at this point, you just got to take what you can get and get Parssinen while he's playing on the top line and top power play. He also, by the way, had 6 hits on Saturday. So, I mean, come on, he's even helping you there. Well, very exciting.
Yeah, I think it's jump time for Juuso Parssinen. 7th round pick, 210th overall back in 2019. Spent 3 seasons and change in the top league in Finland with TPS Turku. Put up solid numbers there, and then came to North America where he put up 9 points in 10 games with Milwaukee of the AHL, 2 goals, 7 assists. And now that Parssinen is centering Philip Forsberg, why not? He is a pass first guy, as you could have ascertained from his AHL numbers. So not a big shooter. Keep that in mind. And but go ahead. Yeah, go get him. He's playing with one of the better goal scorers in the league. Why wouldn't you want someone who gets a chance to feed him at even strength and on the power play? The flip side here, Elon, is Matt Duchene has been bumped down to the second line and second power play. He was cold a while. He's been okay again lately, even while he's on the second line, second power play unit, but still, he's on the second line, second power play unit. This is not what we were hoping for when those of us like myself drafted him as an 80, maybe even more point player. And he's only playing like 16 minutes a night lately. So I'm not loving what Juuso Parssinen's ascendance means for Matt Duchene. So keep an eye on how much Duchene can be worth. And if you have Duchene and someone else in your league hasn't noticed that he's slipped a bit, maybe this is a good time to kick tires on offers for him.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely a bit concerning. I guess like a Kuznetsov situation. Like we expected higher deployment. He's not getting it. Let's see if he can still produce. Maybe not. Let's go to Florida now. So they played today. We had a whole discussion in the general NHL channel leading up to the game because Florida hadn't tweeted out their lines yet right before. And I was really curious because I was going to stream someone in and I was curious if Colin White was going to stick with Barkov and Verhaeghe. And then we saw like some tweet that turned out not to be reliable, that White wasn't on that line. And then anyway, now, and then it turned out that he wasn't. Shams was saying, no, you shouldn't have trusted that tweet. And actually, Colin White is starting the game with Barkov. But now I'm looking at what the lines actually were throughout the game. And it was a whole different set of lines. It was Barkov with Reinhart and Verhaeghe. So Sam Reinhart back on the top line, if this is true, which I don't see why it wouldn't be. And then Matthew Tkachuk was playing with Sam Bennett and Eetu Luosterainen, who's been actually a pretty good guy. Steven Luosterainen, I believe, had another. Oh, no, he didn't have an point today. Okay. So forget that. But he's obviously in a good spot if you want a really deep guy playing with Tkachuk and Bennett. But anyways, all that said, what did I want to talk about? I was going to talk about Colin White on the top line, but now he's not there anymore. So Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really to talk about on Florida. I guess everyone
No.
who you'd be interested in is probably already rostered.
Yeah, except for those of us who did stream in Colin White for that assumed top line upside. He took one shot and he scored on it. So congrats to anybody who needed that to win their matchups. You didn't deserve it, but you got it. I'm one of those people. Nick Cousins and Josh Mahura with the assist, driving home the point that Colin White is not locked in for great deployment going forward.
Yeah, so definitely drop him next week. By the way, Brandon Montour still on the top power play. It's been 2 defensemen. He has 18 points in 16 games now. That was before today's game, so I guess I could check and see what he did. But yeah, I don't think this guy's going to slow down that much. Like, obviously, he's not a point per game, but I think for people who were thinking he's going to totally fall off once Ekblad comes back, doesn't seem like that's the case. Like, yeah, no points today, but 7 shots. And he played 24 minutes and 48 seconds. So Montour, I think he's for real. Like, I think a lot of people were thinking like sell high, but I think probably like sell high, obviously, if you can get like, Victor Hedman. Well, even though that might be an interesting question at this point, but I'd probably still take Hedman. But like, this is the conversation we're having, right? Like Montour, I think is like kind of for real, like maybe like what, 55, 60 point guy potentially.
Yeah, no, for sure. We talked about him last, like you would have thought, knowing us, like, oh yeah, Brandon Montour, Ekblad's back, forget it. But I mean, you mentioned the shots, Elon. When I looked at him the last time I looked at him before we went on the air, Brandon Montour had 4 shots through 10 minutes tonight, and then he added 3 more through the rest of the game. Seems established on the top unit. I think the next flashpoint for Montour's deployment would be if the top power play slumps, or if that doesn't happen, maybe it's when Anthony Duclair returns, because no one else is really screaming out for a top power play job to bump Montour, which is, this is bad news for Sam Bennett, Anton Lundell, or anyone else who may have seemed on the cusp of a promotion from the second unit to the top unit. But I think Montour's got that spot locked down and the trust of his coach. He is a great guy to have.
Okay, let's go to Carolina now. We're wrapping this up. We've got 3 teams to go. Let's see if the intrepid listeners can try to figure out what are the 3 teams we haven't talked about yet. One of them is Carolina. Back to Zach Fry's question of who was the most surprising. Definitely, I didn't expect Martin Necas to do as well as he was doing, though Ben or Lewis, I forget actually, I think it was Ben, talked about how like maybe he's falling off a little bit. Maybe it was Lewis actually. Anyway, doesn't matter. It was on Short Shifts. Those were both great shows this week. I really enjoyed them. And you should be subscribed to Keeping Karlsson so you can get all of our great shows, Stream Scheme, Short Shifts, and these mega shows. So then, I don't know if people know this. Podcasts are great. Okay. If you're just like streaming that you just went to Spotify and you go pick and choose your episodes, you can like subscribe to podcasts and they download automatically. It's fantastic. Anyway, what did I want to talk about in Carolina? There's not that much here, but I guess I'll bring up that Svechnikov is cold. He only has 1 goal, no assists in his last 4 games. He's off the Aho line, at least in the last game. They went back to Stefan Nason, I already forgot, but I think it was Nason playing with Aho and Necas. Not that I'm saying I think it's going to last, but less fun than when Svechnikov was playing with Aho and Necas. But are we going to assume this is just nothing to be concerned about, or should we be a little concerned that maybe Svechnikov is going to not be able to keep up how he started the season?
I'm a little concerned about Svechnikov, which I don't know what that's worth, because I feel like he has all the talent in the world and we don't need to worry too much about him. But last year when Svechnikov was off the top line, he played with Vincent Trocheck, and now he's playing with Seth Jarvis and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Can they be good enough line mates to keep him rolling? Or was Trocheck, we've seen Trocheck be really good and what he's worth for the Rangers. So I don't know. So that's one question in my mind. The other one is that what would Svechnikov's season look like if he wasn't shooting twice his usual shooting percentage? He's shooting 20%. He scored 12 times on 60 shots. Normally, he'd have 6 goals on that many shots based on his usual 10% shooting percentage, which would put Svechnikov on a 55-point pace. So like a couple of red flags here for Svechnikov. The thing is, the numbers all around look okay elsewhere. His on-ice expected goals rates are down, but I don't know. I think normally I would say don't worry about Svechnikov, and in this context, I'm saying maybe there's a little more reason to be worried than you might have already been. I'm just going to toss it out there. Don't get too reactive, but keep an eye out. I'm not sure how into Svechnikov I am if he doesn't play more with Aho and or Necas. I'm a little concerned.
Okay, well, I guess it's hard for me to say. I don't want to say I'm too concerned, because I think last year at one point Svechnikov was on a cold streak and I said I was concerned, and then he just ended up being great, and I just don't want to get into that. He's so good,
right?
So
he can do that to us. I'm also a little concerned. I'm not too concerned. I think that's a good way to frame it.
It's kind of like an Ovechkin. It's like he's a little cold right now, but I don't really want to go out and tell people that I think he's not going to bounce back, because he's so good that he can do it. Like there's reasons, like you're bringing up good reasons why maybe he won't, but like he's also good enough that he could. So it's hard to say. You don't want to freak out too much. 2 teams to go. Everyone in the chat is trying to guess. They guess that Arizona is one of them. The other one, probably the reason you're not guessing the other team is because I think we did mention them in passing, and we just didn't, make them our official team at that point. And they've been talked about so much on the pod over these past few weeks on ours and on short shifts. I'm talking about Columbus Blue Jackets. Okay, we haven't officially covered the Blue Jackets yet today. This team that is totally decimated, even worse than the Philadelphia Flyers are decimated. So they played today against Florida, and get this, Brian, they won against the Florida Panthers.
Both teams are on a back-to-back, but still, that's wild.
Yeah, and I was deciding on a stream for today. I was in a close matchup, and I ended up deciding between Gustav Nyquist, it was tweeted that he did play on the top line with Jenner and Gaudreau. I was deciding between him and Tarasov, who I was a little scared to start against the Panthers. Tarasov ended up having an insane game. He would have been the right choice. He stopped 47 of 50. So, I mean, it's not like Florida didn't try to win this game. Like, it seems like, I don't know all the deeper stats, but like, man, like Florida just couldn't get enough by Tarasov. Even though they threw the kitchen sink at him. Meanwhile, Bobrovsky, I'm seeing, had a terrible game. Only stopped 18 of 23. Youch. So I guess we're definitely going to see Spencer Knight again soon. But now Tarasov becomes someone that I'd say hold for, I don't know, not hold like forever, but I'd imagine how he gets the next game over Korpisalo while Merzlikins is injured. Like, I'm really excited to see some of these highlights now and see what Tarasov was doing. What else can we talk about here? I guess I'll tell you about some other players who had big games. Gaudreau had a goal and 2 assists. Bemstrom on the top power play. He had an assist. I don't know. Then everyone else is just 1 point. So I don't know. I don't really have a question. I'm interested in how great Tarasov did. That's about it. And Nyquist on the top line, but not top power play. So how exciting is that? Not really.
Yeah. Okay. No, let me just, I don't need to. Okay, I'll jump to Tarasov, Elon. I think he's someone who's really interesting. Victor from Fantasy Hockey Life, I wrote him. I was like, hey, what do you see? Because Tarasov has small samples everywhere he's gone. He hasn't really been anywhere for very long. He had a 925 save percentage for Ufa Salavat Ufayev in the KHL in 16 games in 2020-21. And there's not a whole lot else to really sink your teeth into for Tarasov, aside from the fact that he was a 3rd-round draft pick, 86th overall of the Blue Jackets in 2017. So Victor gave me his thoughts and said that he thinks Tarasov has a track record of being like a legit goalie in the NHL. Like he's on track to be there. And we sort of had this conversation last year too, where we saw the upside but not the opportunity with Merzlikins. Now that Merzlikins out, I wonder, I feel confident, as I've made clear before, that Korpisalo isn't the guy to run away with the job. So maybe this is an open door for Tarasov to step in. The only problem is he's got to play behind Columbus, who is not going to protect their goalie terribly well. But to fill out the rest of Victor's thoughts that are very valuable to share. And if you want more, Fantasy Hockey Life is the name of his podcast with Jesse Severe. He has Tarasov 5th on his ranks of goalies under 50 NHL games. So only Wallstedt, Lucas Dostal, and Askarov are ahead of Tarasov on Victor's list of goalies who haven't played a whole lot in the league yet. So that's a pretty big vote of confidence.
Yeah. Wait, did you say Tarasov is 5th?
Yes.
But you only said 3 goalies. I want to know who the 4th one is.
Well, the other one is Spencer Knight, who's about to leave the list.
I see. Okay. Spencer Knight, who should definitely have played for Florida, and maybe they would have done a little better today. Okay, so very excited. We had a question here about Kent Johnson. He scored a goal. That's exciting. He's going to be really awesome one day. He's already on the top power play, so he's someone maybe to look at in deeper leagues. I don't know for 1-year leagues if he's going to do too much. I mean, Columbus is not going to have games like this too often, but it's really cool. I'm actually kind of sad now that we had to podcast and not watch this game. It would have been fun to see. Okay, I'm not that sad though, because I've been having a great time, and we're going to end in Arizona, who are an interesting team to talk about because they've got 2 big out juries coming. Jacob Chychrun and Nick Schmaltz, both expected to play tomorrow, and Arizona has a great schedule next week. They play 4 times. So if either of these guys are out there, go get him. And in fact, like Nick Schmaltz is probably going to go right up with Clayton Keller, who's kept a point per game. So who knows, maybe Keller will be able to help Schmaltz, do similar to what he did last year. Like I would definitely be rushing to grab him if he was out there. And then Chychrun, man, that's an interesting storyline, right? Because like there's been so many rumors about every team like wanting to trade for Jacob Chychrun. All Arizona needs to do, if they're smart, is showcase him, and they're going to get a big return. Like you search for Chychrun on Twitter, and it's like half the tweets are just Leafs and Sens fans saying how like they need to trade for this guy. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how the deployment's going to work out, and also like how much ice time, and also obviously if Chychrun is 100%. You know, he's had all these injuries, the hand, and that was like something else. Like recently it's hand, but then there was another injury. I don't even know. He's been out for a while. I'm excited to see what he's got. So, you know, this is more like not an advice question or anything, but more just like I'm excited to see. And I'm sure Ben and Lewis will cover Chychrun and Schmaltz's returns on short shifts this week. So this is more like a preview for those shows. So it's good that they went last.
Yeah, and it's a really good time for Chychrun to be coming. It wouldn't have been such a great time in those first 6 games of the season when Gostisbehere was hot. 8 points in his first 6 games, over 4 shots a night, 4.5 shots a night, basically. And since then, Gostisbehere has been ice cold. Like anybody who was feeling like really great about having him, like I hope you felt great, because since then there hasn't been a lot to feel good about. He has been pointless in 9 of his last 10. This is Gostisbehere, save for 1 2-assist outing against Washington, and he's averaging 1.5 shots per game in these last 10 games. So Gostisbehere has gone like from like skyrocketing stock to basically nothing. And that's a great opportunity for Chychrun to walk in and also get showcased by the Coyotes, who definitely still have designs on trading him. He has designs on being traded. So maybe it'll work out well for everybody, but this is a great opportunity or timing for Chychrun's return. And as for Nick Schmaltz, yeah, he's needed to in Arizona. Arizona has just 6 goals in their last 4 games. And they're also 6 games into this this dreaded 14-game road trip that we've mentioned a bunch. So 8 games from now, we might need to wait 8 games to see Chychrun and Schmaltz and what they can really do when this god-awful road trip is over for the Coyotes. But once that happens, I'm open to both of them doing stuff, especially if Chychrun can play a meaningful role on the top power play. And I assume Schmaltz is finally going to be someone that Keller can play with, and hopefully they can get each other going the way they did last year.
Yeah, I believe, I don't want to spoil Stream Scheme too much, but Dave was talking about Boyd and how he's like got this great deployment. So before you rush to stream in Travis Boyd, I would wait just to see where Schmaltz plays and if that bumps Boyd. Maybe it won't. Maybe Travis Boyd will still be top line, top power play, but not a guarantee, because Schmaltz is obviously a guy who you would think would get priority there. But maybe there's room for both. But with that, Brian, we've made it through all 32 teams, only a little bit above 2 hours. So I'm pretty impressed. I think if we didn't have your airing of the grievances at the start, then we would have done it just in time.
If you had just talked to me about UPL, then yeah.
I blew it. I've learned my lesson, and I'm going to be better moving forward. I'm going to be a good friend to you.
You haven't, and you're not.
I want to be great.
You want to be, but you won't be.
Well, step 1 is admitting you have a problem, and I'm doing that here. Okay.
Okay, I'll take. Except you told me you wouldn't go to a therapy appointment.
I mean, if you schedule it, I mean, as long as I don't have to pay for it, I guess I have nothing to lose.
No, there's no benefits on our podcast employee plan.
We should ask Blue Wire if we have benefits.
Oh, good idea. Okay, I'll put it on the to-do list.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Hope you like the show.
This show has been therapy. I'm good.
Okay, great. So we're back to 100% friendship level. Wait, well, okay, we're getting there. I'm very good friends with the listeners. I appreciate you very much, because we wouldn't do this without you. We also wouldn't do this without the patrons, right? So thanks to the patrons, thanks to the listeners for your, varied levels of support. As far as the patrons go, we have a ton of perks for you if you want to come support the show financially for only $5 a month US, which is becoming more and more Canadian. So sorry, I think there was like something where like all of a sudden the people who pay in Canadian, they bumped them up, and we had a whole issue that we had to look into. But anyways, hopefully that's all resolved. But I don't know why I'm getting into that. The perks that we give to patrons for your support are, first of all, this show, which we put out, and then we have the awesome Discord server where we're chatting all the time, which we've referenced a lot, and we get questions for the podcast, which we've brought up. We get from the patrons. We do our monthly patron cast. We did a really fun one last week, which you could still go listen to. I think you'll enjoy it. Obviously the cupful, which is too late to join, but you could actually join and get on the wait list and still get a team, because there's always teams falling off, and then you'll be able to play in the cupful next year. We also have the show notes, which we post every week, and like we said, if you want to be able to join our live shows moving forward, which are always a lot of fun, we've had a lot of fun here in the chat, that will be a perk for patrons as well starting next week. So all of that and more, find out the information over at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. And yeah, we'd also appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes. Maybe you'll think I'm asking too much, but hey, we gave you a 2+ hour podcast here, so I hope you don't mind a little bit of a question, a little bit of a request segment here right at the end. But with that, Brian, I'm done. Okay, all I request now is for Brian to cue the outro music and then to read us the credits.
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters who really show us how much they look. Everyone does what they can. So thank you very much to Kevin, Aaron, Tyler, Andrea, Tom, Ryan, Derek, David, Rob, and of course, our first ever patron, Patty. Thank you to our team of co-commissions and our Cacupful coordinator, Kevin A. Bear, for keeping the Cacupful running so strong and smoothly. kkupfl.com if you want to join the waitlist or be a part or just see how all of it works. Also, shout out to our Cacupful Gazette team who are cranking out the content. So that's Elizawich and Adam and Hopplenuts, aka Tom. You guys are and like they're like running it themselves. So if you've ever wanted to be in a fantasy league where there is like a media source that comments on what you're doing on a regular basis, Kevin's also involved, our coordinator. This is it. And if you're in the Cacupful, check out the Cacupful Gazette because they're talking about you and
It's
your
really
team
fun.
and the league. It's funny.
They're great writers.
All right. Thank you, Elon and Shams, for keeping the amazing stream of fantasy news rolling on GameDayTweets.com. You can follow Ben and Lewis at Short Shifts KK and listen to their shows this week. You can follow Dave at NHL Stream Scheme and listen to his show this week. Logo art by BrandonWeave.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo!
All right. Great job as always, Brian. Thanks again for the awesome chat. You guys were all thanks for that awesome chat. You were all amazing, giving us lots of entertainment as we went. And Brian, for everyone listening, obviously you're going to get 2 short shift shows this week, just like every week with Ben and Lewis. And then you and I will be back for another mega episode next Sunday. And what should we all do while we eagerly anticipate all of these great shows?
Please keep doing what you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Awesome. Good stuff. What a good time we've had. Great. You know what's really sad? No, I'm going to say one thing. You know that meme of the guy in the Olympics who's like celebrating like because he just won and he's like drinking champagne, like he makes out with someone and then it turns out that he was actually in 3rd place and it's the two.
It's like a cartoon.
It's like a 4 a comic that's like with 4 panels.
Yeah, it's like a panel. Yeah.
That's like me having won my couple matchup this week because like I'm happy that I won, but I have like the 3rd worst, lowest number of points in my division. Like I stink. My team is really bad. I'm 3-3, and I do not deserve to be 3-3 now. I've had some. My 3 wins have all been weeks that I would have lost to most of the teams.
I'm an undeserving 4-2, and sometimes, Elon, you got to take these when they come because you don't always get them. Sometimes you're on the other side of it, so you just gotta, yeah.
I think I might end the season 3-16, but I'm happy now to be 3-3 in the meantime.
It actually be like 3-18, 3-19.
I don't know. I didn't check the number.
Yeah,
I should have. Thanks for the correction, though. That was really fun of you. Throw that out there. All right. This is great.
Congrats on your win.
Congrats on your win.
Someone make the meme and put Elon's face on the guy.
Yeah. And then you could have Mark Callanan as one of the people. Like he could be the one in 1st place. I think he's 1st in the div right now. And then who's 2nd right now? About Harrison. Yeah. Put Mark and Harrison's faces or Lori. It's actually like it'll be interesting. There's 5 teams right now that are 4-1. I haven't checked to see like how it'll, reshuffle after this week is over. But that's pretty rare, right? Like 5 teams that are 4-1, and then a bunch of us who are under 500. More than half the division are under 500. But obviously that'll all even out a little bit after this week. Tier 1's crazy. It's very hard. It's a very hard division. Like while we've been podcasting, a bunch of good streamers have gone for next week. Andrew Kopp is gone. Sharon Govich is gone. I might have grabbed one of those guys. Oh well, I have Tatar. Should I be happy? We already discussed if I'm happy about that. I'm holding on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you're not happy about it, so we'll see. I mean,
I'm happy. He'll do something. Yeah. Eric Halla just got streamed in. Like the fact that Halla and Sharon Govich got streamed in makes me happy that I have Tatar because obviously he would have been streamed in. So those guys are hotter right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, we could do this all night, but I better go. And I'm sure you as well. But Brian, this has been so fun. Thanks again, everyone. See you all. See you next time.
Bye. Have fun taking care of business.
Will do.